Hi, everyone. I'm here with my buddy PSA Sitch. Say hi, Sitch.
Ow! Oh, what's up?
So this very nearly did not happen.
Yes, that's right.
You and Adam have been temporarily what is it? You got your streaming rights revoked.
We got okay. So we covered, or we made a video about Hassan interviewing the Houthi pirate guy,
Mm-hmm.
and we both made the very poor decision, okay, to include a clip that showed some of the Houthi child soldiers that was on Twitter, and it showed them. I'm sure you saw this. It was like they showed the kids shooting like a gun down a range.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and the whole point was like, look, this is what Hassan is simping for, like this kind of behavior. And YouTube's like, oh my God, this is footage of child endangerment. You're supporting child endangerment. Strike for 1 week. And I was like, what the hell? And we peeled it and they said, no, get out of here. So actually, and our strike ends tomorrow. But,
Okay.
But I asked everyone in Steve's chat. Okay, I care about Steven. I don't want him to get in trouble. I asked an official YouTube representative, I said, can I go on someone else's stream? And will they get in trouble? And they said, yes, their channel will get deleted. So this better be worth it.
We're taking a risk here, guys. This
That's
is
right.
my big shebang. Yeah, I had a whole bit planned for it. I was gonna say PSA Sitch couldn't join us. He's he's on the lam right now, running from the law. But I brought this guy named DSA Snitch. He's gonna spill the tea on the Democratic Socialists of America.
That's right. Listen, I've been deep undercover in the leftists. Let me tell you something.
So I'm sure you all know who Sitch is. He hangs out with that loser nobody Adam. So, but
I thought you were 18. What's happening here?
I'm joking.
The betrayal.
But Adam's a good dude. Adam came on my stream a while ago, so that was nice of him. But now I got you, and one day I'll have both of you at the same time, which sounds oddly sexual, but they're
hot. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, we already got a super chat. Stug for $2. Will Sitch denounce Adam friended cat?
Why would I listen? I appreciate and love both Wormy and Ragamuffin. Why would I denounce them? Stug, what are you talking
Which one is the cat that's like actually his and the one that weirdly kind of lives at his house?
Wormy is the one behind him that's actually his. Ragamuffin is the neighbor's cat who he holds up to the mic and shakes and it makes like sounds.
It's bizarre that the neighbor's cat comes in the streams.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's weird. I don't know why. Like, I don't know why their neighbor's not just taking care of their cat or whatever, but
sure. Okay, so you guys got this temporary hold on, what do we call it, streaming. Yeah. What are your thoughts generally about, the discourse online? It's like there's a faction of people who think that YouTube is the new public square, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, all that stuff is a new public square, and therefore they shouldn't be able to do this. What say you?
Do like
ban people, shadow ban people, prevent people from being on their platform, whatever. You there? I think I lost him. I don't know. Sitch? Oh no, I guess I'll just look at these super chats now. Christian Baller for $4.99. Wish I could watch live, but I gotta go watch the Gurren Lagann movie in theaters. I'm not familiar with that. Sitch, what are your top 5 issues facing the country ranked? And then Stug for $2 said, I don't know, Sitch, why would you? Okay. We lost Sitch. Hold on. This is not good. I don't know. Maybe YouTube really did come for him. What happened to you? I'm DMing him on Twitter. Maybe he really just didn't want to do it, and this is his way of bailing out. Anyways, what's going on with you guys? This guy is a total fraud. Bring Vernaculus back on. No, he was terrible. I hate that guy. I brought him on because I felt bad for him. Anyways, so my thoughts on the whole like YouTube as the public square or whatever. No. Basically, so there are such things as public accommodations laws. And it's they started back in the day in England for inns, because if you were turned down from an inn for, any reason other than they didn't have room for you, you would die of exposure. And so basically, it was a life or death situation. You don't have the latitude to discriminate against people here. And certain companies do fall under public accommodations, like the utility company here in Wisconsin is We Energies. That's actually a private company. They're granted a state monopoly, and therefore they fall under things like public accommodations because it's fucking freezing here. And if they turn off my heat because they're like, "Oh, I saw what you said on that live stream. Now you're canceled, so we can't be associated with you anymore. We'll turn off your electricity." I would die. And so, in like situations where it's really dire like that, I actually do believe in public accommodations, but I don't think YouTube falls under that, or Twitter, or Facebook, or whatever. And the thing that people need to think about is, with that, are you willing to take the other side of that? So like, We Energies not only obviously subject to public accommodation laws, they really get, hey, are you back?
YouTube really doesn't want me on the stream.
I was about to say, I said maybe you maybe they actually did ban you.
Susan Wojcicki just broke into my window and ripped the cord out of the back of my computer.
Oh, that's no good.
But I beat her up. So
okay, good. Is she tied up in your the corner of your room?
Sure, I'll go with that.
Okay, I did get a question for you.
Yeah.
Christian Baller for $4.99 said, "Wish I could watch live, but I got to go watch the Gurren Lagann movie. I've never heard of it, but
Gurren Lagann, jeez.
Gurren Lagann. Okay, what's that?
You need to watch some anime. Come on.
Okay, I've only watched Dragon Ball Z, and does Pokemon count as anime?
Of course.
Okay, well those are the two.
Have you ever seen Dragon Ball Z abridged?
Yes, I have.
Oh, based.
Yeah.
Okay.
They take out like the 10 episode fight scenes, and they like minimize them.
No, not Kai. It's on YouTube. It's like people that they like redub it and make it funny.
Oh, okay, I think I have seen that, but
okay. You should watch it. It's very funny.
Okay. Sitch, what are your top 5 issues facing the country ranked?
Top 5 issues. Well, number 1 obviously is going to be the fact that we got a strike on our channel.
Yeah.
Number 2, I think, would be the bad amount of remakes and sequels in Hollywood.
Okay.
Number 3, I think, would obviously be wokeness and communism. Sure. Number 4 would be, I'm going to say the fact that Donald Trump is not in jail. I'm trying to figure out how many, I got to piss off everybody. And number 5, let's see, the number 5 issue would be, I think it's just too cold in too many places. I think we need to build a big border wall on the northern border to keep all the cold air out of America.
You know what? I'm for it right now.
Yeah, there we go.
I am pro global warming because it's freezing up here.
Oh, actually, my God.
It's amazing how quickly people adjust, because it was like negative temperatures the last week, and now it's like 33 degrees, and everybody's like, "Oh, damn, time to wear a t-shirt and shorts."
Everything's relative. It's like, oh my God, you've experienced true cold, and you're like, oh, this is nothing now.
Yeah. Dude,
33, I'd be like dying. It's like a nice 75-ish, I think, where I am. So
the one big trade-off is like you have big nasty bugs in Florida. Florida's like Dagobah. There's a lot of life down there.
Yeah. Oh, do you not have a bug? What do you mean? You don't get big bugs up there?
We get bugs, but like I've been to Florida, and oh my God, they're way bigger and way grosser down there.
Like what?
Like, have you seen the centipedes down there versus up here? We don't have cockroaches up here, not really, unless you're
what?
Yeah.
Listen, I might be moving up there. Okay. Palmetto bugs are disgusting.
You have to keep like a really shitty place, like never clean it to get cockroaches.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Like they will not sneak into your house just out of the wild.
Yeah, the palmetto bugs, which is what are like the big gross roaches that you're talking about down here. Like they're just everywhere. You can't really. I mean, you can get like Orkin spray. If you get Orkin or someone like spray outside, then you'll be fine.
Sure.
But, you also be inhaling pesticides all day, so it's a trade-off.
Hey man, I'd rather not see bugs. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't get me wrong, we still get them up here. Like, and I scream like a girl whenever I see a centipede. Like, literally.
A centipede, really?
Dude, centipedes are gross.
Are you talking about like the ones that have like the big pincers and like? Is that what you're talking about?
They got like a zillion legs. Not a millipede. Millipedes are fine.
Yeah,
well, millipedes are gross, but
yeah,
centipedes look like these. They're these long abominations with like a million legs.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know
go
what a
super
centipede.
fast.
Yeah, like you're talking about the ones that have like the super long. Because there's like little tiny centipedes that are like flying, but then there's the ones that are like fat and they have the really thick, gross legs and the
Oof.
pincers in the front.
Yeah, we don't have those up here.
Okay. I mean, I've only seen one of those here like once.
Oh.
But there was one time, I don't remember where I was. So I'm an Eagle Scout because I'm an amazing person.
Mm-hmm.
And one time at a camp out, I felt something on my leg, on my thigh, and I look down and I see like a fuzzy caterpillar. And I go, huh. And I just kind of like go to brush it off. And when I do, I realize it's not fuzzy, it's spiky.
Oh my God.
And so when I brush it off, it sinks somehow all of its spikes in my thigh. And it was like the most painful thing I've ever experienced.
Ugh.
I was like, oh my God, I couldn't walk for like an hour. I was like, what the hell is going on? It was crazy.
Yeah, my buddy who used to live in Texas, which is another warm state, he said that you had to check your shoes
Scorpions.
for scorpions, but also centipedes, because they had like one time his toe got bit by like a big ass centipede, and it was swole up his foot for like a week.
That's disgusting.
I know.
At least we don't have scorpions here. At least that I've ever seen. I'm sure they're in like the Everglades or something. But
yeah, I don't know, Sitch. Why would you Stug for $2? That is a reference to the cat, I believe.
I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know what Stug is referencing here.
Whenever like I'm about to go on your show, or like when I had Adam on, there's like a million questions that I can tell are related to the lore of your show. And I'm like, what the fuck is the context here?
Well, Stug is a regular of ours. I'm not sure what the denouncing of Adam's cat is in reference to, though.
Okay. What is the our birds owls thing? Or our owls birds thing? What the hell?
Our owls birds.
You explained this to me once.
No, I'm asking you. It's a question.
Yes, of course they are.
Oh, okay. That's good. You passed.
Okay, did somebody deny that once?
So, are you familiar with Doomer Media?
No. I've seen something.
He did the video that everyone knows that was Vosh is unironically evil.
Okay.
You know that video?
Yes.
Okay. So Doomer, he used to come on our show all the time, and he would play like a heel. That kind of grew out of control, but it was very funny. But I don't know. He had this Doomer he gets like very intense rants about very weird subjects, and one of them, for some reason on stream, was about the fact that owls are not birds, and so it became like a stream meme. And there would be 3 questions that we would ask every guest when they would come on our show for a period of time. The first question was, are owls birds?
Yeah.
The second question, I actually forgot what the second question was. So someone challenge.
I know what one of the other ones is.
The third question was the POV question. Yes.
Oh, well, okay. Well, one of the questions was, would you rather fight a horse-sized duck, or what is it? 20 sized horses?
Oh, thank you. Okay. That was the second question. Thank you. See, Steve knows the questions that I don't even know. The second question was, do you think you could defeat in a fight a horse-sized duck?
No.
God, you're such a pussy.
Dude, duck. Here's the thing. Any bird larger than a duck is probably evil. Like geese are evil. Ostriches are evil. Emus are evil.
Yeah.
And so they're super aggressive.
Yeah.
And so they'll probably, like, one that big will probably kill you. Like, I don't fuck with ostriches. That thing can
It's a duck, though. It's not an ostrich. It is just a duck that's big. So that means it still has its hollow, shitty duck bones. You can just kick its legs out.
A goose is a duck that's big.
You don't think you can beat up a goose?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to, but like one the size of a horse.
You think you would lose to a horse?
You know how strong that neck would be?
Why would it be strong? It's a goose. It's just been upscaled.
I don't know.
I will listen. Maybe it's a Florida thing. As Florida man, I will take out any fucking goose or ducks. All right.
Fair enough.
And thank you, Lucy Lemonbugs, for $20. Even though you're a dirty sticker. I don't know if you know this. I'll talk about that later. She says, ask 3 questions.
Oh, wait. Okay, I'll go to that one. Ask the 3 questions. So we addressed 2 of them.
Yeah. So the third question is, why is this night different than all other nights? No, I'm just kidding. That's a Jewish show. Okay. The POV question. You know about
this? That's the one I don't know.
Okay. You don't have to answer this. We literally.
Oh wait, this is the porn one.
This is the porn. You do know.
I'm kind of.
Yeah.
When I'm in the moment, I don't even think about these things. Like...
Well, that's the whole point, to get you to think about this.
Next time I watch porn, I'm gonna think about that. Okay. So for those of you who don't know,
wait, you don't know? You don't know the answer to this question?
I'm trying to think. I don't watch.
Okay,
Amazing that I
listen,
do not watch porn that often.
listen. We'll help you out, chat. Okay, everyone. Steve, I want you to close your eyes right now. I want you to pretend you're masturbating to porn in front of everyone.
Okay.
Okay, get into it. Get the motions down. Okay, and just visualize you're watching your favorite adult video. Okay, and like, what's
Okay.
going on in your mind? Are you inside of it? Are you like the participant, or are you just like watching it like through a little window?
I'm the participant.
There you go. That's okay.
There we go.
So
Okay.
that's the POV. So for people that know what we're talking about, so the POV question is that ask people when they watch porn, do they envision themselves in it, or are they like watching other people engage in sexual activities?
How do they fantasize? Because obviously the literal version is the latter, but
Well, it's interesting. So like 3/4 of the people say they say that they would be inside of it. But but there's a quarter of people that say that they're just watching it.
really interesting.
Which I mean, it's even though it's kind of like a meme joke question, it is kind of interesting to me because it came up on stream once, and I think like me and Adam, most people who are the POV types, none of us even thought that like anyone else would just watch it as opposed to being in the POV.
I don't know. There's nothing surprises me anymore in that regard. Okay, tall skinny geek for $10. Thank you so much. I'm woodworking while listening. If I finish the project before the live stream ends, I'll SC again. Thank you. Super chat again. Bribe offered. Sweet. Let's keep going. What are you woodworking on? Are you making? Yeah, I'm curious.
What are they making?
Because if it's like an entire furniture set, that's not going to happen. But if it's like if you're making like a wooden paddle, I think that's attainable. Okay. Red 473 for $4.99. Steve, do you think there's a policy disconnect between privately owned middle markets versus large publicly traded businesses? Yeah, typically. So like privately owned companies have much more latitude in what they do, basically. And when they're not that big, like they don't have to serve the entire nation as a whole, they're not beholden to they're less susceptible to broad trends in national culture. Like you're less likely to see one of the former companies virtue signal on like Pride Month or something like that. Whereas this is almost obligatory for a big company. That's my opinion anyways.
Okay, I agree.
If that was your question. Excuse me. All right. Justin Little for $4.99. Do you have any opinion regarding Trump's legal cases? Georgia Rico, Jack Smith indictment, classified documents case. Shit's fucked out there. So that's really like as far as the legalese of it goes. No, I tend to stay out of that because I'm not really equipped to answer that.
Take a stance, coward.
No, I'm gonna let the justice system play itself out. I guess that is a controversial opinion in its own right.
Yes, this is YouTube. You're supposed to say what's right and what's wrong.
Well, I mean, like people really think the justice system is being militarized, and like I'm not saying there's nothing there, but are all of them just witch hunts? I'm skeptical. But
obviously,
yeah,
Trump is innocent of everything.
I don't think he will actually face any jail time. And so, do you think he'll face jail time?
Well, let me say how I feel about each case first. I think the Georgia case is the strongest case against him because some of the other cases there than January 6th case. I think the problem is going to be, I think a lot of the case, I don't know how much, but some aspects of the federal case, the Jack Smith case, relies on whether Trump knew he lost the election or not and was lying, which unless someone comes out who was like, the Trump's chief of staff or something and says that he knew he lost, right? Which I'm skeptical would happen. I think it's going to be very difficult to prove to a jury. I don't know, maybe it's a DC, so who the fuck knows? They can get some jury. But like, I think it'd be very difficult to prove Trump is just not delusional and just thought he won. Yeah. I think that'd be very hard to show.
I was listening. Oh, sorry. Were you finished?
Well, you can go.
So right before this, I was listening to the Destiny Ben Shapiro debate. I don't know if you checked it out yet.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but yeah, I was part of it.
But that was one of their questions: is did Trump know that he lost, or has he convinced himself of that? And Ben Shapiro is no. Donald Trump convinces himself of anything, and Destiny is squarely in the camp that of course he knew, and he deliberately lied about all this stuff. Like you said, in order to be convicted in a court of law, you're going to have to really prove intent, sort of like first-degree murder. You actually have to prove a motive and everything. And that's going to be difficult to do because, right, unless there's some recording of Donald Trump being like, I know we lost, but okay, we can do this and we can make me win anyways. I don't.
Well, like, so most of the time in most criminal cases, there isn't the recording, right? So people
Mhm.
have to kind of like inference. Like if it was someone who wasn't Trump, I think most people would assume that he knew that he lost. But Trump is such
Yeah.
like a weird, like delusional guy that people are like, I mean, maybe he didn't. I don't know. So it's kind of funny that might actually give him protection in this case.
Apparently, he's still convinced that Barack Obama was not born in the United States, even though like enough people convinced him to publicly drop that.
Oh my god.
So like,
Oh, Jesus.
he's very capable of convincing himself of things. That's for sure.
Right. But with so going back to the Georgia case, the reason I think the
Mhm.
Georgia case is strongest is because they don't have to prove at all. For some of the charges they would, but for a lot of the charges, they don't have to prove at all that Donald Trump knew he lost the election, because they'd only have to show that they knew that the quote alternate electors were not actually certified by the state, which obviously they knew that. That's not even a
Mhm.
question.
That's why they're alternate electors.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so that case seems to me to be like, I don't really know how Trump would escape getting charged in that case, just straight up. So
And it's also a state case, so he can't pardon himself
he can't
for it.
pardon himself, right? Yeah.
Or he
Now the
can't have
question
the
is,
next.
of course, because these cases are going to take so long, if Trump wins the election, like, they're not going to be going after him, presumably, while he's president.
You
And
would
will
assume so.
anyone care in 4 years when this happens? So.
Right. I don't know. We'll see. Did you pay any attention to the New Hampshire primaries last night?
No, I looked them up today to see. There was some conspiracy theory that the Democrats created a bunch of fake ballots for Joe Biden, which is retarded. I was like, what? This
Oh,
is
so that's
really
what they're
stupid.
going with now. Okay.
Well, because he was against like Dean Phillips or something. Dean Phillips had like it's the whole thing's stupid. It's not even worth talking about. But so I saw Trump. I assume Trump won, and then what's her
Mhm.
face got she got second, but not too far behind. Right?
Yeah, so Trump got like 50, as of last time I looked at it was like 95% reporting. Trump,
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Haley got like 53%, or no, Trump got
43.
53% and Haley got like 46% or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so she a lot of people are saying the writing's on the wall, even though the next state is the state she was the governor of. But I don't think she has much of a chance anyways, so getting second in New Hampshire is it doesn't bode well for the future of her campaign, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine there's any shot that she would ever win the primary unless Donald Trump, gets arrested or dies or something crazy happens. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think I think it's her only chance of winning. I don't
Yeah.
know what the law is, or if there is a law in terms of like if Donald Trump wins the primary, and then he dies or gets arrested, can they just replace him, or does it go to whoever's VP slot is? I have no clue how
So
that works.
political parties they're not legally bound by
I know they're private
laws like that.
organizations, so can
Yeah.
they just choose whoever?
It really depends what their bylaws say. If it happens
Mm.
before the convention, they can vote another candidate in. After the
Well, actually,
convention,
don't some of the states have laws about who can appear on the ballot anyway?
well, yeah, but that's not who a political party can nominate for the candidate in the ballot. Those are separate questions.
Sure, but that'd be weird if there's some such, because people are talking about like not really much is about Trump, but more about Biden. Like, is the DNC going to swap out Biden at some point?
Mhm.
But it'd be weird, I think it'd be too difficult if they swapped Biden or Trump out at the last minute, but they couldn't actually get the candidate. They swapped them out on the ballot.
Right.
That'd be,
So
like, devastating.
every state has like laws on, hey, your ballot needs to be submitted by now.
Right.
If for nothing else, purely for logistical purposes, they need to get
Yeah,
the
of
ballots
course.
printed out and everything.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, if it happened after that, I don't know what they would do at that hard
Mhm.
deadline. But like I said, the parties are ruled by their bylaws, and the RNC and DNC have different bylaws. So I don't know exactly how that would play out. Elaine Camark, she's somebody who has written about this. She would probably know.
Mhm.
I can't remember the last time that's even happened. It's never happened in my lifetime, certainly. But
Right.
so have you kept up with the New Hampshire thing and the Democratic side?
No. About with
So
what?
so by their state constitution, they have to be the first primary in the nation.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And they just decided that. They said, we're first. And
Yeah.
basically, so the DNC can choose to honor that or not, and they just don't, and as well as the RNC, and they basically just always have. But this time the DNC said no, South Carolina is going to be first, and New Hampshire was like,
Really?
yep. So the primary that just happened, they're not even honoring the results, which is funny because, and that's why Joe Biden was a write-in, because when states have broken the rules before, they tend to
They penalize them.
yeah, they penalize them, which is why in 2008, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were not on the Florida ballot. I don't know if
Yes.
you were old enough to
I
vote on
remember.
that.
Yes, I remember that. Is in Florida.
And so the original threat was that those states were going to have their, and Michigan did it too, but Hillary was on the ballot for some reason. The initial threat was that, and they did this, is that these states aren't going to be able to send delegates to the convention.
Mhm.
But they ended up granting their delegates, and they just didn't even split between Obama and Hillary.
Right.
But yeah, it's the idea. So they have this thing called the window rule, and it's basically to prevent states from just racing for a sooner and sooner date for their primary to be more and more important. And if you violate the window rule, then they'll take away your delegates, or they'll lessen your delegates, or something like that. And they basically tell candidates to comply, otherwise the candidates themselves will be punished.
Yeah, but this is weird because, like, usually it's the states, getting uppity, trying to jump ahead. But this is, if New Hampshire has always been first, and they're like, no, this time it's South Carolina. Like, it's kind of like, what's the point of even doing that?
I mean, so the real reason is because Joe Biden did well in South Carolina last time. That was where he turned his campaign around.
Right.
And
I remember, yeah.
they didn't want to have a primary in any meaningful sense. And so they moved South Carolina first to help him out. Their stated reason is like, oh, diversity, which is, but the thing is, like, and progressives have gotten all mad because, oh, they're
Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, yeah.
They're stacking the deck in favor of Biden, which they are, but it's like, why can't you just win over the people of South Carolina? Like, your message is so popular, you always say it is, then go to South Carolina.
Yeah, there you
go. Marianne Williamson put all her eggs in the New Hampshire basket just because it's easier. It's a smaller state. And it did not pan out for her. She got like 3%. Dean Phillips ended up getting like 28% or something like that. Joe Biden, who did not appear on the ballot, won 54% in write-off or write-in, which is pretty impressive. But again, it's not going to have any consequences as far as the delegates go, but it would have been embarrassing had he lost it. He had nothing to gain by doing that, but he won anyways. So
but it's still kind of like silly for the DNC to even make hay about this, because if they had just let it go like the way it was supposed to with New Hampshire first, Biden still would have won.
Like, he was going to lose New Hampshire anyways, which is why it's kind of a baffling move. But I don't know. In one sense, I'm like, okay, it's a silly move. In another sense, I'm like, why does New Hampshire just automatically get to be the first primary state?
Because they wrote it in their constitution. They said they just said firsties. Okay, they said, okay, we get a first. I was like, okay, they said a first. I don't know.
Wisconsin or something should be like, in their state constitution, our primary has to be before New Hampshire's primary, and then it's going to be like,
it doesn't have to be first. It just has to be before New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's a unstoppable what's the expression? Unstoppable force and an immovable object. There's no reconciling those two. So Christian Baller for 199 asks, first of all, thank you, Steve. What is your favorite video you've made? Obviously the one about Anna Kasparian quitting the Young Turks, because I was 100% right about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You called that, really?
Yeah. You haven't heard? She quit.
Well, I did know that. Yes.
No, obviously that one. Somebody commented on that video. Nice call, Nostra dumbass, and that was like, 6 months ago, after like 4 years of that video being up and her not quitting. So I made the pinned comment because it's like, okay, whatever, sure, I was wrong. I like the videos I've written about Russia and the ones about campaign finance stuff. Not always my most popular stuff, but those are the ones I most enjoy having made. So I actually watched one of your videos right before this. It was the Game of Thrones one, the first one.
Oh, wow.
That is probably my favorite video of yours.
Thank you. I think that's my most viewed video. And it's funny because it's the video I shitted out the fastest and put probably the least amount of effort in. And
isn't it funny how that works?
It's not funny. It's fun. People ask me, like, why did I stop making videos? It was literally that basically killed my drive to make videos. I was like, oh God, what am I doing?
I talked about this with Justin last week. It's like YouTube really does not incentivize a lot of hard work, so to speak. I mean, like, don't get me
No.
wrong, there's some very popular creators who do obviously clearly put a lot of effort into their videos. Like Mr. Beast very clearly like puts a lot of time and thought and money into his videos. But it's like
Sure.
I think for sort of middle tier creators, especially in news and politics, it's like here's the news story and here's my spin on it is a lot more lucrative than the whole like let's make a video essay and provide sources.
Well, it's difficult because like the aesthetic now seems to be people want videos that they can just listen to, or they want videos that are actually like kind of seem to be low effort, even if they're not. And so if you spend a lot of time like making your video look great, it's like, oh, well, it doesn't like it's not adhering to that aesthetic that I think a lot of people want anyway.
Interesting. What
But yeah, I don't know. It is difficult to figure because then it's like how much of it is just chasing the algorithm, chasing whatever is the popular story. Be like, are you going to be the person that like creates 6 videos a day on like every story you can find, where you just kind of give a very base opinion, or are you going to try to like be thoughtful about something and no one watch a video because who cares about some topic that's not trending?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the incentives are very good here on YouTube, but hey, that's just me. Maybe that's just sour grapes because I'm not popular, but whatever.
Well, I think part of it is just people suck. Like the population just sucks. I think that's part of it.
People do not have great attention spans. That's why
No.
shorts are taken off. Yeah.
Right. But I think there's another part of it, and this is really upsetting, which is that after the apocalypse, whenever that happened in 2015 or 2016.
That was 2016, I thought.
Okay, yeah.
Or was it 20? I can't remember.
I don't know. Sometime in the way back years of SJWs when the apocalypse happened. That YouTube completely, I don't know if you remember, it was crazy because back in those days, when you would look up like a news story, CNN and MSNBC, they'd always have like very low viewed videos on like all the news stories. Almost all the mainstream networks did. But then after that, they completely adjusted the algorithm to make it so that if it was a news story, the algorithm would intentionally promote, quote, mainstream sources.
Yep.
And it made all those channels blow up. And to me, that was just like a horribly disgusting, and I wonder if even maybe a borderline illegal thing to happen.
I remember went like searching for a clip. Like I literally typed Young Turks Brett Kavanaugh, and the first videos were like CBS News.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Yes. Oh my God. I made a video about this, but no one cared because it was about Joe Biden. But this was like insane. It was when Joe Biden announces he was running for president in 2020. And if you typed in the exact name in quotes, no, if you typed in like Joe Biden announcing he's running for president, you just find nothing but like news reporting on it, but you wouldn't find his official video.
Really?
And the only possible way you could actually find his official video was if you got the exact title of his video and put it in quotes. That was the only way you could find it on YouTube.
I've found that with Trump clips too. Like, I'll try and find a clip of Trump saying something, and then they'll have like a 30-second blurb and then some news guy talking over it.
Yeah.
It's like, I need this video for my video, but
yeah,
whatever.
You have to try to like hope it's a long video. It's sorted by length or something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Christian Baller for $4.99. Again, thank you so much. Steve, thoughts on the Supreme Court border barbed wire decision? So I think this literally just broke today. Basically, and I'm just going off memory here. I haven't even read an article about it. I've just seen stuff on Twitter. If I understand correctly, the Supreme Court ordered the state of Texas to take barbed wire down from their border area, and Texas has said they will not comply. So we could have a constitutional crisis on our hands. I don't know. It's as far as like legally goes, I don't see how the state of Texas could have authority over. I mean, I guess their nullification is a thing, but like usually there's a supremacy clause, and like the federal government would have the say, and the Supreme Court's obviously part of the federal government. As far as the merits of it go, I don't know. I'm pro-immigration, so but I don't know. I also do believe that immigration should be controlled. So,
yeah, like from a legal perspective, and I'm assuming no one's even arguing. Well, I'm assuming someone is, but it doesn't make sense to me legally that a state would have authority over borders, federal borders, over the federal government, even though it happens to also be a state border. So
Right.
obviously the federal government, and that's why the Supreme Court, I assume, ruled in favor of the federal government, because I can't imagine how they wouldn't. And so it would be interesting because Texas has now said they're not going to comply, which I guess we'll see what
Yeah.
Biden does, if anything.
Is he going to march in the National Guard?
Yeah, I don't know. Are they going to send in the National Guard? Are they going to have a standoff with Texas State Guard, or are they going to charge Abbott with sedition? I have no clue. It'd be kind of a fun little 2024 thing, maybe. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think legally, federal government is obviously has the authority here. In terms, but also there's kind of like two explanations I've seen about this. So the Texas's explanation is that the federal government is intentionally not enforcing the border for whatever reason, and so it's up to them to do it. And the federal argument is actually that the blockades that the Texas is putting up is preventing them from enforcing the border and from having their agents kind of go up and down the border, because I think they also have like water borders or some kind of like floating border on the water.
I mean, I know that like part of the border is the Rio Grande,
right,
so,
right,
and it might be like the barbed wire might be on like the bank of the Rio Grande.
It is, yeah. It's all over the place. And also, there's another issue, which is that, it is annoying because like, so like this all started because there are these videos that unfortunately a lot of YouTube creators blew up, which was federal agents like clipping barbed wire so that illegal immigrants could like enter into this area. And so everyone's like, oh my God, the feds are letting the illegals in. It's like, wait a minute, you're saying like, you understand that they're basically like taking them to be processed, right? They can't just say like, oh, we're just going to leave you stuck in barbed wire for like ever, I guess. Like what are they supposed to, like, I don't know. It's a very weird fucking thing that people were blowing up. It's so annoying when people blow up these clips. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, obviously that's what they're going to do. They're not going to just like let them stay stuck in barbed wire and bleed out or something forever.
Have them die of exposure.
Right. But the real thing, the thing that's weird about this, and I think that the Republicans are kind of full of shit on immigration, is because and listen, I'm a big enlightened centrist and or leftist, depending on who you ask.
Okay. I also hear your show is right wing,
or my show is right wing. That's true.
Yeah.
We're all over the place. Okay. My prescription on immigration is the problem will never be solved until they get rid of the ability for people to apply for amnesty on the border. That's really the only way to stop people from showing up. And I don't understand why I haven't heard any Republicans push for that.
Couldn't tell you. I'm pro-immigration. I think that it should be easy enough to come to the United States so that people don't really have an incentive to enter illegally. Obviously, there need to be some checks if there are violent people or like people with communicable diseases. We don't want them coming in the country, but that would be my solution to the crisis. That's not a popular one, to say the least.
I mean, I'm in favor of. I'm not like one of these like zero immigration. Like I'm in favor of immigration. I'm not in favor of just. I think we have way too much people trying to come in illegally or just try to apply for amnesty on the border than we should have. So I think it needs to be limited or restricted. I think there should be I think there should be restrictions. Kind of the problem is like, and I understand this, is we don't really handle immigration intelligently, because to do so would probably be considered unethical, which would be, you could have more immigration if you made sure to like if you said, okay, yeah, you can come to America, but like you can't all clump up in one city or one state. That's what annoys people. People are annoyed to live in like Florida or Texas or California or some other state. And it's like, oh, over like 20 years, the whole city becomes like Hispanic, right? That annoys people. And I get it. That's totally like understandable. And so if there's like a way you could like spread everyone out so that everyone kind of like assimilates.
No, I got it.
Then that would, I think, would solve a lot of these problems, but I don't really know how the federal government would institute a program like that.
I mean, that's one of the arguments against chain migration, is because with chain migration, a relation of yours, if you immigrate successfully, it's much easier for a relation of yours to immigrate.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments against it is that it provides this, what would you even call it? Gentrification, I guess. But the argument for it is that it provides like a social safety net for the people who de facto social safety net for the people who come in, because they're less likely to depend on government resources because they have close family and friends who are in the area as opposed to being on their own. So
but exactly, and I understand that argument, but that is essentially the problem, because like, listen, I live my whole life in South Florida. Most of the, not most, but like, a huge chunk of people that I went to school with and have friends with, been in relationships with my entire life are, people from South or Central America. And so or some kind of Hispanic, Latin descent. And like, to me, like, none of that stuff bothers me. I'm not like, all the people are like, oh my God, they're gonna ruin our culture. I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. The only thing that bothers me, and I think bothers most people, is just when you have to interact with a person and they don't speak English. It's like the most frustrating thing on the planet. And you're like, what the fuck?
No, I get that. Jonah Goldberg said a long time ago that if responsible parties don't deal with immigration, irresponsible parties will.
Yeah.
And so I do think that it's the prerogative of the population that people are coming into to direct immigration policy. And hopefully it can be done in a responsible way. Like, it may be cosmically just to let these people in, but that's not what the government's concerned with,
Sure. Well, it feels like right now it's kind of like, it's like, how with, the Republicans were like, we're going to repeal Obamacare. And finally they get Trump in and they're like, we're going to repeal and replace. And then they have nothing to replace Obamacare. Right. It feels like that's immigration. Only both the Democrats and Republicans for the last 20 years have had no fucking clue what to do about immigration. And so no one does anything. It just continues to nothing, like, exist in this weird limbo state indefinitely.
Well, and both parties have an incentive not to solve it because
yes, exactly.
The
Democrats are afraid of being racist, and the Republicans, I don't know. They just maybe they want to use it just to keep hitting the Democrats over the head with. But
yeah, it's a hot button issue.
Yeah,
and Democrats somewhat erroneously, and Republicans buy into this too, think that, oh, these people are just going to vote for us.
Yeah,
it's like are Hispanics just inherently Democratic? I don't think so.
No, they're more socially conservative on average. It's retarded. Yeah.
But okay. Electro for $20. Thank you so much. S class is the best class. Wait, there's no A team. SMD starts with an S, so S class is the best class. That's perfect logic right there. Everyone answering the point of view question with point of view is wrong. If anyone is not the point of view category, they are voyeurs. Okay, fair enough. So
wait, you're saying everyone answering the POV with POV is wrong. So you're saying you're saying you're pro voyeur, right?
I guess he never said that voyeurism is inherently bad.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, usually that's, more degenerate, but okay, sure. But thank you.
To each their own. What people do in the privacy in front of their own computers is their business.
True.
Red 473 for $4.99. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, would you support the decentralizing of any federal institution? Yes, I would do. Basically all of them. It seems broad centralized power scares both parties for different reasons. So my position is that the federal government should basically just be the military, and that's about it. I don't know. What do you think, Sitch?
Well, so you don't want a Food and Drug Administration?
No.
Oh, well, okay. So is that all is there like this done by the states, or is it all
private? Yeah, that sort of thing would be done by the states.
I don't know. Would it be too weird if every state had its? Well, I guess every state does have its own health regulations on top of whatever the federal ones, right?
Well, and here's what often happens. So if you ever read like a package for dishwasher soap or something like that, it'll be like, in California.
Yes, this will give you cancer, but no other state.
Not if you live in another state.
Yes.
So if there were a patchwork of agencies, the big companies would probably just conform to the largest state, what they do. So we'd all have California standards.
So what would be like the benefit of having all states regulate our food to make sure they're not getting arsenic in our chicken as opposed to the federal government?
So I think that state government institutions, when they're behaving badly, are more likely to be punished in the form of people leaving that state. If a state is just poorly governed, it's more likely to lose resources.
I see.
Whereas the federal government just has a monopoly on everything, and so people it's really hard to leave the country. So whereas obviously it's not easy to move states. I did this year; it was a pain in the ass.
Sure.
There's that level of accountability there, though. That
No,
don't
I think
we
I think
have
that's a
when we
good
have
point.
centralized power.
But I think the trade-off is that. So I know you talked to Adam about MMT. The trade-off is that basically the government has the ability to spend like always way more to enforce any of this stuff, where states cannot, because states don't produce money on themselves. They can only get it through tax revenue. So they, like, a state could be very hamstrung in sort of enforcing any of these things where the federal government isn't.
I don't think the federal government does a good job with it. But
okay. I mean, you might think sure, but
the federal government would still administer the currency, so it's like
no, but I mean, like,
no, I got you.
Yeah,
and you could still like block grant money to states. I would prefer that over what we do now.
Okay, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's what we do with Medicaid now.
Right.
I would much rather have that than the federal government actually running the particular service.
Right. I mean, I have no. It's funny. I have no like moral intuitions about this topic. As long as it gets done, that's all I really care about.
Sure.
I've been listening to this audiobook called The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis. And it's, he's the guy that wrote Moneyball and Liar's Poker and The Big Short and all that stuff. And it's kind of interesting. The whole book is about how when Trump became president, like, he didn't really have a transition team at all whatsoever. He didn't even want to have a transition team.
He didn't think he was going to win.
He didn't think he was going to win. And also he didn't like, it basically took Chris Christie and what's his name? Who's the head of his campaign?
Steve Bannon.
Bannon, yeah.
Well, Kellyanne Conway was the head of his campaign at the end there. But
right at the end, right.
Okay.
But it took Steve Bannon and Chris Christie to basically tell him that he had to, by law, to do this. And then he didn't want to pay for it. It was like this big thing. But anyway, like a big part of the book is about how the federal government does all this like insane shit that people just don't talk about or realize. And he spends a lot of it talking about all the stuff the Department of Energy does regarding
the nukes,
regarding nuclear management, nuclear waste management, and all this other stuff. So, like, obviously, I mean, I'm assuming like you would be in favor of the federal government, maintaining nukes and nuclear waste and all that stuff.
Well, that's like, okay, so
that's like military or something.
I don't know if you remember Rick Perry's oops moment.
He talks about that in the book, and like the head of the DOE.
When he had that moment, obviously the people were focused on the spectacle, but like a bunch of people wrote like, the Department of Energy is in charge of like the nuclear arsenal or like maintaining the nuclear arsenal.
Right.
It's like somebody has to do that, and it's not going to be some private organization. So yeah, I mean, look, there are lots of things that the federal government does that are probably necessary or good, and that's sort of the problem with utopian thinking generally is like, oh, I wrote this up on the chalkboard and it's going to work exactly like I think it is. No, you would anything where you decrease the size of the federal government, you would have to do it slowly because there's going to be, I guess, shrinking pains. I want to use the phrase growing pains, but that wouldn't make sense. But, there would have to be a transition towards a more sensible approach. So I'm not talking about overnight, bam, government's infinitely smaller than it is now. That's obviously not realistic. So,
it'd be kind of like was it Chesterton's fence? Is that the concept?
I don't know.
It's like
G.K. Chesterton's fence is there for a reason. Like,
yeah, like there's a thing there and you don't know, like it's kind of like conservatives make this argument with like tradition. There's some tradition there, and if you break it, they could have some negative outcome you don't anticipate. And so I think what you're saying makes sense, that if you do want to reduce the federal government, you would have to do it like over years, very piecemeal, to like make sure you're not breaking everything in the process.
That's why, like, don't get me wrong, I from what I've seen from the dude in Argentina, Malay or whatever his name is, afuera, like I love the spirit of that, but I'm like, I hope he's doing this sensibly. Otherwise, like, you could create some real problems.
I guess, listen, it'll be a good test case for us to watch.
Indeed. But I love the spirit of afuera. So Goro Cero for $5. Thank you so much. SMD, how do you feel about male circumcision? Should we continue to mutilate boys like Sitch and Adam want? Anyways, enjoy your
Oh my
recent
God.
resurgence. Thank you. And I will be having a video coming out this weekend. So stay
About
tuned
male
for that.
circumcision?
Oh, no. I don't think it's something you should do to babies. I think that if an adult thinks he's better off with without his foreskin, then cut it off. But
There you go.
those are my thoughts. I'm assuming you have strong opinions on this.
I don't have. Well, no, I have strong opinions on people getting annoyed at me for not having strong opinions.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, so I'm Jewish. I am circumcised.
Sure.
Okay? I think that if people want to do it, if parents want to do it, then that's their choice to do it. You know,
Okay.
I actually don't know if I have a male child if I would do it, because I do like. I mean, even though I'm Jewish, I'm not like practicing or anything. So I don't really have strong feelings about whether I would do it or not, but I think if people want to do it, you just gotta let them have that opportunity.
Fair enough.
So
I mean, I think that sort of body transformation stuff like that is stuff that is a decision that should be made by an adult. But I get that it's a cultural thing that I'm not going to be able. That creates a lot of pushback.
right.
So when you're watching porn and you're imagining yourself as a dude, does your captain still have his cap, even if, or not have his cap, even if
It's true. It breaks immersion when you see
Yeah.
them. They don't. Yeah.
that must be difficult for you.
Well, actually, I don't know. Like most people, I think most people in America are circumcised. I believe most males.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
believe that is the statistic.
I'd have to look it up.
I mean, at least in porn, it seems that way. So that's all that matters, right?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how many dicks you're looking at normally.
That's usually not what I'm paying attention to. But
How do you feel about chopsticks?
What are chopsticks? Like the
Like the
utensils?
Yeah.
I can't deal with them.
Right? Isn't it like, listen, this is like, what are we, like cave people using
know.
sticks that we found in like the dirt? Okay. We're in America and we use utensils. We use a
Yeah.
knife and a fork like a civilized individual.
I was at a sushi restaurant once. I don't eat sushi often, but it's fine.
Sushi's great.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey, can you bring me a fork?" And the waitress laughed at me, and I was like, "Fuck you!" What? Here's the thing: I hate populism, but like when it comes to like food and entertainment, I'm a total pleb. I'm not like, "Ooh, I'm gonna eat the Asian fusion stuff with the chopsticks." No, I'm using my fork and knife like an everyman.
The only thing that I will use chopsticks to eat is sushi, because it's like the little pieces are like designed to be picked up with a chopstick, but anything else is like, what am I doing with this nonsense? Everything else is easier. Ramen, just like normal, like chicken. It's all easier with a knife and fork.
I agree. Spencer Harmon for $20. Thank you so much. I've actually missed Sitch and Adam this whole week. Well, there's a reason for that. I'm glad this is happening, even though Adam's stream with you was better. Well,
wow, Spencer. Oh, disgusting.
well,
A-team betrayal here.
We're just getting going, so
jeez,
we'll see where this goes. Eventually, I will get to those. A bunch of people ask me questions, so I do want to get to those, but we got some super chats to go through. Drew the Dogman for $2. Ask him my eugenics question, please. I saw your question. Thank you for that. But
what's the eugenics question?
Why are you pro eugenics?
Is this a fucking abortion question? Drew's always hitting us with abortion nonsense.
So he thinks that eugenics or abortion is a form of eugenics.
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know what the eugenics.
I guess like in a certain respect it is, in the sense that like so in certain countries where abortion is legal, their population of Down syndrome children are like declining, because that's a big reason people get abortions. Is like not a big reason, but it is a reason, is because your baby has Down syndrome and then they get the abortion, so they excuse me, so that population is declining. I guess that's eugenics in a sense. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm pro-choice, so I mean, not to like some people are pro-choice up to the moment of birth. I think that's crazy. I'm pro-choice with time restrictions. And if people want to do it, that's fine. I think if someone gets their baby tested and they have Down syndrome or some other disorder, I think it's totally justifiable for them to get an abortion. There was that case recently, I forget what state it was, where the woman was pregnant with a child that had some disorder where it was like 90% of babies with this disorder die within the first year. and then the ones that make it basically have a horrible life after that.
Ugh.
Like they don't have like limbs or I don't know, something really fucked up.
Mm.
And they're like, the state was like, no, you can't get an abortion. This isn't like a medical necessary reason to get an abortion. I was like, this is insane. Like, give me a break. So from that perspective, yeah, I think I'm pro-choice. But from the like broader eugenics question, and I talked about this. I don't know if this is what Drew's talking about. I mean, we're going to live. Have you seen the movie Gattaca?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the movie Gattaca takes place in some kind of near future where gene editing is for babies is basically the norm.
Okay.
And so there's like a class of people who have been gene edited and they're all like, super smart and, physically strong. And then the people that are not gene edited are basically like have to do menial labor tasks. And I don't think that is what's going to happen because also like a lot of the gene editing technology seems like it'll work on people whether they're babies or not, like even before they're like even after they're born, they can kind of gene edit you. But that is like we're going to in our lifetimes live through that future where they are going to have all this gene editing technology. And I mean, yeah, there's going to be people that get mad about it and they're going to say, oh no, this is affront to God or nature or whatever. And it's like, okay, yeah, you do that. And then your kids, get shunted further and further down because they're competing with all these like super intelligent, super healthy people. And everyone's just going to have to get gene edited at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring on the gene editing. I'm tired of being short. I want to be 6 feet tall.
There you go. Yeah. Wait, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
That's not short. That's like that's like the national average, isn't it?
And for women, I think.
Wait, no, it's not.
I think it's 5'10" for men.
Okay. Well, I'm 5'10", so I'm exactly normal then.
Okay. Well, I would tower over like Ben Shapiro or Destiny, who are debating.
Yeah, but they're like midgets.
So, but yeah, I'm a short dude, and I refuse to wear the stilts or whatever those things are that Ron DeSantis wears. So.
Oh, you don't want to wear the big boots?
No.
So it says the average height for women in the U.S. is 5'4".
Okay.
So listen, you still got some height, and for men it's 5'9". So you still got some height over the ladies.
Gotcha. So if I do wear the stilts, I can be average. Good.
There you go. Yeah, it's got a big heel.
All right, Spencer Harmon for another $20. Thank you so much. The Supreme Court didn't say that Texas had to remove the barbed wire. All they did was removed an injunction from one circuit court saying the federal government couldn't take it down. Nothing affirmative was done. I'm behind. I'm more behind than you because I had not. This is the first I've heard it. So
I knew that. Like I read because I went to go find the Supreme Court ruling, and it was just a paragraph that said that, and I said I don't know what any of this means, and I just threw it away.
Thank you, Spencer, for the update. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But, you'll probably learn before I do. So, all right.
I still can't imagine the federal government's going to side with a state over it, but I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out. The real Holzenator. Reduce the population of every country outside of the U.S. to 0. Sweet.
That's true, but listen, there's a humane way to do that, okay? The bad way is to kill everyone. The humane way is to just have America take over every other country.
Exactly.
So there is no other country.
So, yeah, I too am for American global hegemony to the point of one world empire.
Based.
Would we still have the Electoral College?
Only in the 50 states. Everyone else doesn't get a vote.
Okay, good, because I was about to say the China vote's going to play a major role there.
They'll have like mini presidents or something for their own little regions that have to listen to our president, who will now be called Emperor President, and then they'll get the vote for that. How about that?
I love it.
Okay.
Christian Baller, again, thank you so much for $1.99. Sitch, the traditional way to eat sushi is by hand. Oh.
I mean, I'm fine with that, but listen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's based. Listen. Go for it.
Okay. And potato with the 200 Norwegian kroners with the smiley face.
I'm glad you read it this time.
Yes. I thought I read it the other time, but apparently I missed it. But okay, I think we got one more. Okay. Jagger for $4.99. How much do you think about being kind to people who have been on the show or even when they say moronic things in a video you cover? That's I'll say this, it's harder to push back against people in real time than it is, make a video about how Sitch is a fucking idiot and script it out. I'm generally diplomatic in person.
Right.
As far as like the people who I brought on, most of them don't wildly disagree with me on most things. So
wow, a hug box, echo chamber.
Yeah. I mean, I will eventually. I got plans, big plans. So stay tuned.
It is more, I mean, at least for me, it's more difficult for someone I've talked to that had like a good conversation with. If I had a bad conversation, fuck them, right?
Yeah.
But if I had a good conversation with them to then see, like, they go turn around and say something like fucking crazy for me to like go off on them. Like, in a good example of this just happened. We've had Kyle Kalinske on a couple of times. We've been on their show a couple of times. We talked to Crystal once or twice. And I like Kyle as a guy. He's very nice in our conversations, even if we disagree. But his take on the Houthi like pirates was like, oh my god.
I got questions about that. So okay,
Yes.
what is his position as you understand it, and what do you disagree with?
So he put out a video that we covered, or was that the video that got taken down?
Was this the video?
Oh, that was the video that got taken down. I guess it's not public.
But okay, so I think the one so he made a video and Vosh responded to it.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So Vosh, this is actually how I watched it originally because I watched most of Kyle's stuff. Surprisingly, I know most people didn't expect that, but
okay. You're looking for content. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's like half my videos are about him.
Right.
But it became better known when Vosh responded to it, and he responded to Hassan Piker too. And then it's about the Houthis. How Kyle basically says the Houthis are right to try and impede global trade, to put pressure on America and Israel to stop the genocide. So yeah, that's his position as I understand it. And
we covered. Okay, I was wrong. So on the Sunday before we got kicked off YouTube for a week, we covered Hassan and Kyle's take on this. Kyle's position, and the thing that really bothered me about it was that he was making it sound like to his audience that they were only stopping boats that were going to Israel. And so you could say, like, if you honestly think, that there's a genocide going on in Gaza, whether you believe that or not, but if you think that, then you could create a rationale or a moral justification to say, okay, well, there's a genocide going on in Gaza. Therefore, it's justified to stop, trade going into Israel, which is maybe sending weapons, or maybe they're just giving some financial support or whatever, right? There's an argument to be made there. And Kyle was kind of like making it seem like to his audience that's what was happening. But we all know that's not what's happening. They're just stopping random ships that have nothing to do with Israel whatsoever. And the ship that they took and the people that they are holding hostage, they're not Israeli. They don't have an Israeli crew. I think they're like Japanese or something. It's like, so the idea that this has anything to do or any justification with Gaza is ludicrous. And to me, it was kind of like wild that Kyle was going on and on about this as if like ignoring this central fact of the situation.
Well, and even if they were doing just that, which they're not, it has had the ancillary effect of basically stopping ships from going through the Red Sea because nobody wants to take that risk. So they're going around the Horn of Africa. Of course, I look at this my own way, and I love how protectionists like kind of understand the importance of free trade when it's putting pressure on another country. So like they're for BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction.
Right.
They're in favor of this, at least some of them are, to prevent goods and service or, goods from going to the nation. It's like, there's this great Henry George quotation. I'm going to butcher it, but it's like basically protectionists try to do to our own country what in peacetime, what other countries try to do to us in wartime. Like, and so it's like they're making this big concession to free trade that like, oh yeah, you actually are hurting a country when you're preventing them from trading with other people. And then they'll turn around and be like, yeah, we should direct our own trade barriers. I don't know. I just think it's ironic, but
no, it is ironic or hypocritical. And also like, there's a YouTube channel, I forget what it's called, that I've been listening to ever since, where it's like a guy who was like a sailor for like merchant ships, and he's kind of covering the story. And it's like he's talking about how a lot of the ships are diverting around Africa, but a lot of them are not. And then a lot of the crews are complaining because they're not paying them extra. They have to like do all this like covert stuff where they turn off their transponders and have mercenaries on their ship. And like people obviously like these are just blue collar ship people working on these ships, and they're all like freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, because they think they're going to get blown up. And some of them, they have been shot out and they have missiles being shot at them, and people on boats come at them and, have them private mercenaries on their ship fire back. And these are just like, these are not people, these are not like soldiers. These are just like random sailors who just work a random job. And to me, it's like, I don't know how someone who's supposed to be like looking out for the working man is supporting this kind of like acts of terrorism against random blue collar people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that I think it also speaks to a naivete about policy. And understand that the Houthis aren't doing a policy in like a legislative sense, but they are conducting a mission here. Is that they really think you can be as precise as they want them to be, like, oh yeah, we're only getting Israeli ships because that's totally a doable thing. That you can definitely identify one, freight ship to another
Right. Yeah.
in that
Exactly.
respect. It's
Yeah.
like, probably not. It sort of reminds me when Kyle was like, yeah, I mean, like, we should sanction the oligarchs in Russia, but not like the regular people. It's like,
How do you do that?
yeah, it's kind of hard to pull off a sanction that's precise. That's that precise. I mean, the oligarchs do have like assets overseas, and you can seize that, whereas like
Right.
regular people don't. But if you really want to put the screws to the country, that's not going to do the thing. So
Well, and also there's this really obnoxious tendency where it's, whenever the United States government says that they're doing something for some reason, they're like, oh, they're lying. It's all a lie. There's some second reason. It's for money or power, whatever. But then if like a foreign country, if like Vladimir Putin says he's doing something for some reason, oh, I gotta
they
believe
take it at
him.
face value. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Fucking Houthi terrorist pirates are saying why they're doing something. Oh, I guess I gotta believe them.
Yeah.
It's
Why
like
would they
simple
lie?
logic. Yeah, exactly. They're like, what is going on here? I don't understand people. It's so ridiculous.
And that doesn't, and of course, like raiding ships doesn't attract like a nefarious element. It's all just people who want to end what's going on in Gaza.
Yes, yes. And then you had, I saw today, like, it's insane. Hassan, he interviews a Houthi pirate or someone who's like claiming maybe to be a Houthi pirate. It's kind of unclear. And he's basically just sucking the guy off the entire interview.
Asking him questions about anime and stuff.
Yeah, he's asking about anime and whether they have KFC. He asked like one question about the hostages, and even that question he phrased it like, "Oh, I heard the hostages are like chilling out, enjoying your local drug that you chew in your mouth."
The cud, yeah.
Yeah, and then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, they're all like chilling, like they're having immaculate vibes." I'm like, "Shut the fuck! Like they're fucking hostages for like over like 2 months. What the fuck are you talking about? Get out of here! They just want to go home. Like this is nonsense." And I don't know how that interview in Hassan treatment isn't not a violation of Twitch's terms of service of like supporting terrorism.
Yeah, I don't know Twitch too well, but that would seem like a pretty big, what do we call it, violation.
Yeah.
Keep calm and carry on. Favorite philosopher? Actually, I don't know if you'd call him a philosopher, but I really, really like the works of Charles Darwin. I find them interesting.
Oh, nice.
I like Christopher Hitchens just because he was such a great writer. Again, not necessarily a philosopher. He was more of a journalist. But yeah, those would be my two answers. My two favorite writers. I like Thomas Sowell. Again, I don't know if he's a philosopher. I don't know exactly what area you're talking about, but
Thomas Sowell,
whatever. I did enjoy Plato, reading Plato in college. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Apology had a big effect on me as a kid.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you? What are your favorite philosophers?
I don't have any because I don't read philosophy.
Okay, fair enough. Nomad for $5. Sitch, let's say hypothetically that you can gene edit your kid to be born circumcised. Would you be for or against it? S class is the best class. So would you just have a child without a foreskin? Genetically so?
Hell yeah. That would make it listen.
Okay.
I think it looks better without, right? So if you could have it without like the issue of like cutting it off, I'd be in favor of it, sure.
There you go. That was always one of the funny like better points against the biblical case for circumcision, because like there's a debate between Dennis Prager and Christopher Hitchens, and he's like, Dennis Prager's bringing up all these statistics like, oh, circumcised children are less likely to get AIDS or whatever. Right. And he's like, well, why didn't God just make the dick without the foreskin? I was like, hey, that's a fair point.
Well, first of all, there's two things. First of all, I've heard like the health argument.
Yeah.
But I've also heard that that's not true.
I can't speak to it. So
right. I've heard that like there's some minor benefit, I believe, but I'm not sure it's really that.
I think you are more likely to get UTIs if you are uncircumcised.
But I don't know if it's like significantly more. It's like I think it's a small. I don't know. But the answer to the God question, the answer, if I believed in any of that stuff, I guess would be like, because the whole thing about the Jews doing it's supposed to be like a way to show their covenant with
Yeah.
God. So it'd be like, oh well,
So yeah, the health benefits is essentially a red herring for someone of that
right.
persuasion to make.
Well, first of all, the Jews were not very smart.
Okay.
For all their high IQ supposedly that we're supposed to have, the Jews are not very smart in terms of proselytizing. Christians were very like smart to like, listen, you just gotta like bend down and get some water thrown at you, right? And you can convert.
Yeah.
The Jews are like, no, you have to cut a piece of your dick off.
That's a hard sell. Yeah.
Who back in the day is like, yeah, let me sign me up for that.
Yeah, back when they did it with like a rock. Like,
yes. Oh my God. I was like, no, fuck no. Who's gonna do this stuff?
I'll say this. In a world without foreskins, we would no longer have schmegma, and I could no longer make jokes about that. So.
There you go.
For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up because I'm not gonna
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a big topic of comedy for you.
It's I go to schmegma a lot in my if I do gross out would you rather's, usually licking schmegma off the Johnson
Jesus.
of somebody gross is
oh my God. We're learning all sorts of things that your audience didn't know about.
Yeah. Okay, so I got some Patreon questions here.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to try and pronounce your name again. Chia Key and Mikan are the best. Chia Key and Mikan are the best. Asks, first, tomorrow is my birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Second, what do you think the best argument against the minimum wage is, and why do you think the left keeps increasing the living wage standard? Well, I can answer that last one. Also, would you be down to do gaming stream? Lastly, have Sitch read this. S class is the best class. Well, I had no way to share it with him, so
S class is the best class.
There, he repeated the last part of that. Yes, I would be down for a gaming stream. It just the logistics we'd have to work out.
What games do you play?
I'm much more of a retro gamer than anything.
Boomer.
Yeah, I am.
Well, what is a retro game? Are you talking about games from like 2010 or like games from like 1990 or something?
I'm talking about like Super Nintendo and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. The last like modern game I played was Tears of the Kingdom, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I played like all of the Zelda games. So
okay.
Are you a gamer? I don't even know.
I am. Yes.
Okay. What games do you play?
Recently, I've actually, even though it's somewhat old, I've been playing God of War 4, which I've had forever and only played recently because now that I can't have anything on YouTube.
I guess.
I'm like depressed. I'm like, I need something to like fill the void in my life. Let me play God of War 4. It's actually really good. There was some controversy about it. I don't know what it was, but I like it a lot.
Okay, and I think I know the answer to this. Are you a PC gamer or a console gamer?
So the last console I ever bought was a PlayStation 2.
Okay.
So that was a long time ago. But then some people, including CT, our editor, very generously, or I think it was actually, never mind, it was just CT because she's insane, gifted me a Switch. So I do have a Switch. Nice. So that's how I did play Tears of the Kingdom and the other Zelda game for Switch, which escapes me at the moment. I play both of them.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, thank you.
Yeah.
So except for the Switch, yeah, it's mostly PC.
Gotcha. So here's my issue with PC gaming. And like, don't get me wrong, there's some PC games out there that look awesome. Mm-hmm. And obviously, usually that's almost always the best way to play it as far as like graphically and, functionality. Every PC gamer I know is like, yeah, I want to get this game, but no, I got to get a new RAM and a new graphics card. I'm like, I just want to plug it in and play, dude. I'm a simpleton like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've got the SNES Classic that like my buddy loaded a bunch of games onto. I've got just a ton of retro systems. I'm not buying this current generation until it's like down there in price because I just don't need new video games. So,
well, I'm kind of mad because like a couple of years ago, I built my computer, and for like the first time, I was like, I'm gonna make like a nice computer so I can like play games on it at like 60 FPS and all stuff. So I like, it was expensive. I got all like the best parts and whatever. And yet for some reason, even though it's like has like a million fans in it, when I play like God of War, I literally only play it like in short bursts because the graphics card fan gets so loud and the computer gets so fucking hot.
Jeez.
And I don't know why. There's something like, I don't know if it's because it's so funny. I spent extra to get a case that was supposed to be extra quiet because I'm like, well, if I stream myself playing a video game, I want it to be quiet. And I think that just maybe he's making it hotter because it doesn't have good ventilation. It's making it like 1,000 times louder, and it's a big fucking hassle. So,
And that's another reason why I'm not a PC gamer, is because like
I get it.
most people who want to get the most bang for their buck build their own computer like you did.
Yes.
And if I tried to do that, it would be like a pile of rubble in 2 hours. I would get super frustrated. And like, I wouldn't be able
no.
to-
I didn't like put it together. There's like sites where you just get all the little parts and then
Okay, gotcha.
like so like they'll make it for you. So yeah, because I don't know enough to put it together.
Yeah, my buddy did that, and I'm like, dude, you are far more bold than I am.
No,
Because-
it has a liquid water cooling thing in it. Supposedly, I'm looking at it, so that's not the issue.
Okay. Yeah, I know, like, with certain parts of it, you have to be super careful about static electricity. Because, like, if you send a little shockwave, destroy it.
That was the thing, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I had a friend that did that. And I'm like, I'm just not gonna bother. I'll just pay extra to have someone make it.
There you go. Okay, and the other part of their question was, what's the best argument against the minimum wage?
I mean, I think it should be like 3 times higher. So you tell me.
So the best argument is that they're not necessarily producing that value.
Mm-hmm.
You can say that, the point is we trade, obviously we use money, but we're really trading certain things for other things. And you can say that somebody making 100 burgers at McDonald's in 2 hours is worth the same as like, whatever, a PS5, but that doesn't make it so. And so if they're not producing that much in value, just creating this artificial wage, saying they do, doesn't make it so. So something's got to give. So either they're going to raise the other prices of other things. Either they're going to, automate away those jobs. Either they're going to fire that person or not hire that person because they're not going to produce that value, or that business is going to go kaput. So that would be my argument.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess so if someone says like, what's the best argument? Like, it's sort of, my question is like, the best argument to who? Because usually when someone's making an argument, they're not making it based on like facts and logic. It's some moral intuition that's triggering them. And usually people that want to raise the minimum wage, myself included, have this moral intuition of like, oh, the CEOs are making 1 billion trillion times more than like the guy who flips the burgers. And that seems unfair, right? There's some sense of unfairness that, is being perceived there. So like the argument that you made, Steve, is true, but it's like, it doesn't really fit into like the fairness issue that someone's feeling on an emotional level.
Well, and there's also like a red herring here. Is
Mhm.
that most of those fast food joints, like I reference flipping burgers, most of them pay way higher than the minimum wage at this point for entry level employees.
Right.
As far as the argument for the living wage goes, it's because, what do you need to live in theory? And like, it's going to be different everywhere you go. And as, the prices of everything gets more expensive, we had inflation. Naturally, their living wage is going to go up. So, and it always will. There's always going to be a moving goalpost there. So, that's why I think it's canard.
Yeah, like some people are in favor of abolishing the minimum wage. I'm not, but I don't think there should be I don't see how there could be a living wage on a federal level. Because every state and even cities, like it's so different across different cities what the wages would be or should be. So I don't think you'd have a federal living wage. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What was I going to say about that? Living wage. Ah, fuck it, I forgot.
Well, the other thing is like there's the problem, which would be if you keep raising the minimum wage, it will cause the inflation spiral that happened in the 70s. So
right, that would certainly be a factor. Okay, TIE Fighter asks, TIE Fighter says, I have a few questions, if I may. One, I asked Adam when he was on Steve's live stream, so now I'll ask Sitch's perspective. What is the origin story of the Sitch and Adam show and the dynamic duo? So what's tell your version of the story?
It's funny because I have like everyone that listens to the stream knows I have a really bad memory for this sort of stuff. So I'll just say whatever Adam said, I guess, is probably correct. I just remember, I think it's that he saw a video. I made a video that was about Anita Sarkeesian complaining about Carl Sargon of Akkad being in the audience at VidCon during her speech. And she like yelled at him, even though he just sat there and said nothing. He was like, she just like pointed to him out and was like very triggered by him. And I made a whole video about it. It was very funny because I made very funny videos back when I used to like work. And Adam saw it. And no, Carl he asked me if he could put it on his channel. I said yes. And then Adam saw it. And he's like, wow, this Sitch guy is really based and awesome. And then he just reached out to me, and I think we did some live streams together, and we just started watching some videos. I think one of the first videos we watched was the Jordan Peterson monk debate video
Okay.
against Michael Eric Dyson. And I don't know, it just took off. We just looked at each other's in our eyes, and we just fell in love.
So Adam was not bit by a radioactive spider.
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. By the way, what is your avatar? Is that like is that the Slender Man or something? Or
No.
what?
Okay, so the origin of my avatar. So back when I started my YouTube channel, it's like back when everyone had cartoon avatars,
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I need a cartoon avatar. I don't want to be on camera. And I know I keep saying I'll do a face reveal. I'll do a face reveal at some point. I'll be on camera. I'm stop being lazy. Okay. But so everyone had a cartoon avatar. I was like, okay, what's mine going to be? And I can't draw it all. So like this avatar that you see on screen, someone else drew this. I can't draw it all. So I was like, I want an avatar that I could use clip art of and just have like a bunch of different like looks, or like the same avatar body, but doing a bunch of different things. And so if you look up clip art, the most prevalent type of clip art is male silhouettes in suits. Because people use most of the clip art for business presentations and stuff.
Sure.
And so I just chose that body type of the silhouette in a suit because it was the most prevalent thing, not realizing that when I did that, there was a meme already that like all the anti-SJW skeptic YouTubers are all cartoons in suits. Like I didn't even like realize that until when I was like, oh shit, he's right. So that was the body. And then for the face, there'd always been that kind of meme of like this toothy smile. And I was like, listen, like woke stuff is horrible and depressing. So I'm going to make it a big frown instead of a smile. And so I actually took the secret lore of the Sitch face is it's actually, ironically, the face of one of the Nazi vampires from Helsing that I took, and I like molded the mouth and distorted it down into like a big frown. And I just slapped it on the little Sitch body, and that's all it is to it.
So you hate the Jews is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I'm self-hated,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's that. I remember that video from back in the day of like how to be a skeptic YouTuber, and it's like pick some random object and put it in a suit.
I know. When that happened, I was like, "Oh fuck!"
That is literally what you did.
I did that.
Yeah, nearly. Okay. Equin Shadox.
Thank you.
$10 super chat. Thank you so much. Sitch, missed you and Adam something fierce this week. Much thanks to SMD for platforming our boys in our dire time of need. Yeah, I'm helping you out, man. Helping you out big time. Also, Steve has answered the horse-sized duck question. I did. I'm a pussy. I'm not going to fight the gigantic duck.
He's a pussy.
Dude, I'm terrified of animals. No, I love animals. But
we're gonna try to stream tomorrow for a little bit. So.
Tune in tomorrow. By the way, link to their channel is in the description box. Hopefully it works. So last time I posted a link on StreamYards like that, it didn't work, but whatever. I think people will be able to find you guys.
Sitch and Adam show, baby, YouTube.
Or Adam and Sitch, depends on who.
No, that is not the name of the channel.
Okay, Fat Brown Buffalo for $10. Sitch knows Fat Brown Buffalo. You interviewed him.
Oh, the real Jake. Yeah.
I think
so know this guy. He's on our stream all the time.
No, I think he's here a lot too. I appreciate him. I think Deepak is one of the most intelligent and well-informed progressive YouTubers, but is extremely partisan, bad faith when discussing Republicans. I would say that's basically all true. What are your thoughts on his commentary? I think you hit the nail on the head. He's obviously a smart guy. He's definitely the least bad of the lefty YouTubers. But yeah, sometimes he says some things that are just insane. So,
yeah, I agree with that. And also, it seems like everyone's getting more radicalized, including David Pakman and everyone. Dave Pakman, I remember him he used to be like very more straight, like news kind of commentary. And he just, obviously that doesn't get you views. Right. So you need to have a thing. And so like, when Trump was in office, a lot of people on the left kind of realized how much views it could get just crapping all over Trump.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of became his brand.
Right. And that's just, it creases from that forward. So
people built like entire careers off of replying to Trump's tweets.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure, I remember that. Yeah.
which is crazy. By the way, if he gets elected president, do you think he's going to go on Twitter again?
Well, I mean, I think the reason he's not on Twitter now is I speculate that he has some kind of deal with Truth where he has to be on Truth and only on Truth Social. So I guess I don't know what the terms of that deal would be. If he, if it expires or goes away when he's president, I think he'll 100% go back on X/Twitter.
It's Twitter. I refuse to call it X.
It's really stupid. It's really, really fucking stupid.
Anyways, TIE Fighter had a couple questions, or a few, I should say. 2, can you please flesh out your thoughts on free will a little more? And if, 4, do you make a religious argument or a secular argument? So, do you believe in free will?
Was that a question to me or to you?
I think it's to you, but
Mhm.
I'm undecided on free will, and I actually don't think it matters. I think the illusion of free will is sufficient. I don't really think it would change our society much.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It doesn't matter in terms like, regardless of whether free will exists, we have to act like it does anyway. So it doesn't matter from that perspective. So Adam hates this, which is why I think it's hilarious. There's 2 types of free will. There's universal free will and there's local free will. And a lot of time people have a problem is that when they have this argument about whether free will exists, they're really using 2 different definitions of free will. And so the local one, the example I always use is the local free will is if you walk up to a fork in the road, you can go left, you can go right. And both directions look the same. And there's no one there to tell you what direction to go. So you decide to go left. Okay, you would say, well, that you have free will. You have there's no external force telling you what to do. You just went left on your own. That's free will. That's local free will. And it seems like that's more like when conservatives talk about free will, that's what they're talking about. I think now this other concept of universal free will, which I think is what more people on the left talk about, is when you approach the fork in the road, even if there's not an external force telling you what direction to go, all this stuff has happened to you in your past that maybe has created a mindset that dictates that you're going to go to the left instead of the right. Maybe, when you were a kid, every time you went to the right, you got, your mom came out of nowhere and she spanked you for some random reason, right? Some weird example, so that kind of conditioned you to go to the left. So then you don't really have free will because you've been conditioned to go to the left your whole life. And that's why you took that left turn.
Sure.
Now, someone who I forget who, but it was very intelligently super chat said, well, that's really an argument against causality, which is impossible, which I agree with. And so if that's your example of if that's your idea of free will, then free will is impossible because it's impossible for us to be free of causality.
Yeah.
And I think that is sort of the problems with some of the left's philosophical ideas is that it is rooted in this impossible scenario.
It's in that case, it's turtles all the way down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, how could we intervene in a society if we're just all products of our what do you call it? Everything that's happened to us.
Right.
But of course they don't think of themselves that way. They're the anointed, as Thomas Sowell says.
Right. Or maybe they're morally lucky, as we like to say.
Sure. And there's a condescension to it. And that was what inspired a lot of the soft on crime stuff. Society has failed these people. And I don't think the results of that have been too good. So
right. And so my personal conception, so I've always said that universal free will can't exist unless you believe in God or some kind of spiritual force or a soul or something that can direct outcomes in your life. Because otherwise that's the only way to be free of causality. If you don't believe in that, obviously universal free will can't exist, but other types of free will can. The way that I kind of like to think about it is just when we talk about free will, we really mean the ability for a person to think about a situation logically and principally, as opposed to just based on their emotions and moral intuitions. And that, I think people are not born that way, but you can 100% learn to set your emotions aside and try to think about things from a more fact-based logical perspective, but it just takes time and training.
And I think anybody old enough can look back at their life where they didn't do that or they did do that and see where that got them. I definitely know times when I was emotional, it didn't help.
Sure.
So I try to be rational in my decision making. Okay. Potato for 50 Norwegian kroners. No smiley face this time. Would you put up the video that got taken down on another channel or another website? You willing
So
to take that risk?
what we'll probably do is we'll put up the video, but we'll just take out that clip that was on Twitter of the child soldiers, because that's the problem.
Yeah, that's this is what
'Cause
they're getting mad about.
right, because that, I mean, and that was just like 10-second part of the video, because the whole rest of like the 20-30 minute video was just us. I had made a compilation of the stupidest parts of Hassan's interview with the Houthi pirate guy.
It was the
And
whole
that,
thing.
yeah, well, that's true. But I condensed it down.
Okay.
And we commented, we watched it and we commented on that. We'll probably put that up when the strike ends without the offending part. So
Gotcha. Okay. Spencer Harmon for $10. Thank you so much. Free will is a bad term. Nothing is free. Agency is a better term. The ability to choose. Okay. I like that better. Agency.
well, I would agree with you, except the feminists stole that the term agency. It's like when you say problematic, you're like, ooh, he used the Reddit word, right?
Right.
So, like, whenever you say agency, I think of like Anita Sarkeesian being like, women don't have agency in their
In
action.
video games, yeah.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. Okay. Equin Shadox. That's how you say your name, right?
yes.
$5 super chat. Thank you so much. The Ben Shapiro versus Alex O'Connor debate over free will and religion has to be my favorite debate ever recorded in the last 5 years. Civil and substantive. Well, I'll have to check it out. I'm assuming Shapiro's on the free will exists side.
I watched part of it, but I don't really remember the arguments too well. So I don't know. I would imagine he's on the free will side. Most religious people are on the free will side, because
Yeah.
otherwise life doesn't really have a lot of meaning. So.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the Abrahamic religions is like you have the ability to choose to serve God in ways X, Y, and Z, or not to, and it's up to you whether you want to be damned or saved. So they kind of have to.
Yeah, though, I mean, again, this is going back to Judaism's poor ability to sell itself. Is like there's so little about the afterlife in Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
There is no hell. It's not really clear what happens in heaven either. So it's like, why bother doing any of this stuff?
That was the thing, that was one thing that Christians got right. Like
They did, yeah.
Yeah, eternal damnation if you don't agree with us, but pure bliss
Right.
if you do.
Yeah.
And it created some pretty dope art. Let's be real here.
There you go. It's easy, yeah. Simple.
Okay. By the way, it's funny because if you look at what Christianity actually says about hell, it's very divorced from our ideas in popular culture. Like our popular notion of hell is based off of like Dante's Inferno and stuff.
Yeah. Which is
fan fiction. Let's
the
be real.
world's first self-insert fan fiction. Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, so were you raised Christian?
I was raised Catholic.
Mhm.
Kind of. It's an interesting history. Like my mom got real into religion after. I mean, she was always like quasi-religious, and she raised us as such. But then she got really into it after her dad died, which happened when I was.
That happens, yeah.
Yeah, when I was like 10 years old. So like then she tried to raise us in the faith, and it was like some of it took, some of it didn't. Now I'm an atheist. So sorry, Mom, you failed.
Nice.
But
so I got in a big argument with Adam about this.
Okay.
What do you think the primary, like, what is the primary message of Christianity, do you think?
John 3:16.
Which says what?
It's, oh God, what is it? I'll read it the exact quotation. So 3:16. Okay. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. It's basically, we're born sinners. We're flawed beings.
Mm-hmm.
We need to accept the one being. We need to accept the one perfect being, God's big sacrifice. He sacrificed his son to forgive the sins of everyone. And that's how you can achieve salvation.
Okay. So forgiveness is in there, right?
Yeah, well, you're being forgiven for your sins by accepting Christ. He is taking the punishment for you that you deserve.
Right. So, because basically this was about the devil statue in whatever state that was. I'm sure you recall that incident.
There's a bunch of those, aren't there?
It happened recently.
Okay.
Like, last month.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the state though.
Yeah. But so, I had the position regarding that. I'm like, listen, I don't think there should be permanent religious statues of any sort in courtrooms or government buildings. Like if they have like wherever this devil statue was, it was like, you know, you could apply and they would put anything up for 2 weeks and take it down. Like, okay, why? Fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with like if people want to put up Christmas decorations or Easter decorations or Halloween or Hanukkah or whatever. I'm fine with like putting up seasonal decorations. Fine. But I don't think there should be these permanent fixed Jesus. Like I don't want to walk into a courtroom and there'd be a giant Jesus on a crucifixion Jesus like right behind the judge or something, right? But Adam is in favor of having these religious symbols in some of these public spaces. And his argument was that, you know, Christianity primarily teaches forgiveness, in that that's like the primary. Well, there's a bunch of arguments, but the argument that we argued about was the idea that when people look at like Jesus, the primary message of Christianity is forgiveness, and most Christians interpret it that way. And I said, I don't think that that's true. I think forgiveness is a big part of Christianity, and I think some people can think forgiveness is a central tenet of Christianity, but I don't think that everyone, or even the majority of Christians, walk around and they see a Jesus in a courtroom and they think forgiveness is like the primary thing.
So I think that like permanently fixed religious iconography is an establishment of religion, which is a violation of the Constitution.
Right.
And the organization that put up the Satan statue is a Satanist organization.
They're atheists.
They don't believe in Satan. They're atheists.
Right.
And the whole point of them doing that is like, oh, well, if you can do it, then we should be able to do it. So they put up this thing that Christians would find very offensive. As far as like the whole Christianity being about forgiveness, sure, but there's like explicitly supernatural elements to it. Like Christ died and then resurrected, so he proved that, you know, death was an option. You would live forever. And it's so interchangeable with, or it's so woven into the supernatural elements that it's an explicitly religious idea of forgiveness. Don't get me wrong, like a lot of Christians do practice forgiveness of other people as a virtue, but the whole tenet is like, well, you violated God's laws, so only God can forgive you on somebody else's behalf. So
right, interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that might be a nice thing, that like, oh well, if people see Jesus, they'll see forgiveness. But again, I think that's largely a red herring, because it's explicitly religious iconography. And look, and the thing about religious iconography is I get that, like, particularly Christian, but not exclusively so, a lot of that iconography is woven into our, you know, national mythology. Like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. So what's something that's like old? We put in God we trust in our money, and that's been around since the 50s, not forever, obviously, but like stuff like that, people generally get a pass on. But I don't know. I don't think it's always easy to establish what is explicitly religious and what isn't in terms of iconography.
I would be curious if they've ever, I'm sure someone's done a study on this, or they'll put like, you know, Christian imagery in a room, and then they'll like tell people stories where they have to like figure out punishments for people to see if people are more forgiving or less forgiving.
That would be interesting. Yeah,
because I'm not sure. I feel like it could go either way. Because you said, yeah, you could be like, oh, like for, you know, love the sinner, hate the sin, or it's like it's for God to decide. Give him a chair,
give him, hang him up dry.
Right? It's like, okay, interesting.
Bloomer Media for $5. But who's to say reacting the cause is not utilizing free will? It's the whole purpose. Isn't the whole purpose being free to react? Yeah, I would agree. We're, you know, all human beings have a lot of baggage we carry around, but we're still free to act unless like you have a brain tumor that's literally making you do so, you know, literally isn't taking your agency away.
Right, but it all depends on how we're defining free will.
Right.
Because even if you're free, like when you say reacting the cause is not utilizing free will, well, I mean, if I guess it's just, again, I just have to repeat myself. If you're defining free will, you're not. But if someone is defining free will as really freedom from the causality of past events, you know, that traumatize them or basically condition them to act in some way, some people will say, well, that's not really free will.
I mean, you can definitely find circumstances where that's true. Like if
Well, I
somebody
mean, it's
has,
true for everything, right?
yeah,
Everything is your biology or your environment shaping your experiences.
no, that's a fair point. But like if somebody has PTSD and like somebody wakes them up and they grab them, which I've heard of happening, they
Right.
react violently. There's not a whole lot. You don't have agency there, but like I think some of the people we were talking about, like the sort of soft on crime lefties, were like, that's everything, which, obviously you have more agency than that in normal circumstances. Your average person, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe part of the problem is that we're looking at it like a binary when, as you said, it should really be on a spectrum of agency, right?
hmm
And
Because
so,
nobody expects like a 3-year-old to have agency in the same way an
sure,
adult does.
right. And yeah, so someone, there's that funny clip of what's her name on Rising talking about like people are stealing cars because they can't get real
Jessica
jobs.
Burbank, yeah.
Jessica Burbank, yeah. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure that okay, so if you have someone who is stealing cars, yeah, I'm sure that if we go back and look at like everything that happened to them, they're on a life track that's putting them on this pathway probably to like steal cars, right?
hmm
And so I get that, and I get the empathy for that. And so, yeah, they're on the spectrum of like, okay, well, maybe they're on the lesser end of free will than other people. But number one, so who cares? You still have to do something about that
Yeah.
behavior, right?
No, by the way, that's what my next video is about, is that clip. And I bring up a Swedish study, interestingly, that just came out. So stay tuned
Mhm.
for that, everyone.
Well, there's a very interesting psychological problem I've noticed, which is that people have a very difficult time understanding why someone does something without um, without saying it's acceptable for them to do it.
hmm
So I can and I think people have to divorce it. Like you can understand why someone make a bad decision. You could be like, oh, I completely understand looking at all the things why you made this really poor decision, but it's still a fucking poor decision for you to make, and you still have to be penalized for it. And people
Yeah.
just can't separate that in their minds.
No, they can't. Let's see here. Lucy Lemon Bug for $2. Would you consider a Rumble account for uncensored vids?
Um, maybe. I mean, it would really be if we just made money off of it, like if it was worth doing or not.
Sure.
So
I don't know how monetization works on Rumble. I'm only on YouTube, so.
yeah, I don't either. I don't either.
The Real Holzinator. Sorry, I don't know why I'm struggling with your name. The Real Holzinator for $4.99. Thank you so much. Why should I have gone to college and gotten a degree and become a software engineer if I'm going to make minimum? Isn't that just communism? I mean, I suppose their argument would be, well, you'd still make more money as a software engineer. I'm assuming that's where they would go with it. But you do raise a point that you're disincentivizing higher earning, pursuing higher earning careers for the sake of earning. If you
Well,
can,
right. Well, the inflation argument is that so if you gave everyone the minimum wage a pay raise, you would have to raise everyone's pay
right.
to some equivalent amount to make up for that. So,
hmm
but I understand what they're saying.
Spencer Hartman for $5. Christ said we are forgiven. We are to forgive 70 times 7. We forgive each other and we ask God for forgiveness. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Words Hurts for $25. Thank you so much. Sitch, please debate / red pill destiny on woke. Woke is designed to destroy liberals / theists. He's debated Ben Shapiro and James Lindsay and still hasn't gotten grappled with the ideas in any meaningful way. Only person who can steel man it is you. Do you accept the challenge?
I would love to do that. But we had that like really weird conversation with Destiny where he was like determined to find like niche things to like debate us on and strawman us on, and it went really poorly and weird. And after that, him and his audience just continually strawman us, me and Adam, for some reason. I
So
don't
what
know why.
on woke is designed to destroy liberals, meaning like, what exactly does that mean?
Oh well, I'll answer that in 1 second. But the last thing I'll say is because recently he even said it was super weird. I was listening to when he was preparing for his Alex Jones debate. He was like doing a bunch of research on January 6th and other stuff. And I was listening to it because I was like, okay, I'm curious to see if there's stuff I don't know about that. And he just like randomly throws out that like me and Adam were like simping for Vivek, and we're like, and I was like, what? like, we're pretty critical of Vivek, and a lot of people in our audience who like Vivek are like angry at us for being critical of Vivek. So I don't know. So I don't know what's up with Destiny. I don't know if that can never be fixed. I hope so, because I like a lot of his content. I don't know what the hard on is for it. But anyway, to answer the question, so James Lindsay is correct. So we actually covered this conversation, and we were more on Destiny's side. Is that Destiny had this conversation with James Lindsay? James Lindsay, I think when he talks about woke and communist academia and literature, I think he's completely correct.
Okay.
I think where he strays is where he uses that same lens to interpret other things like government actions and things through that same lens. And so basically what James is saying, which I think is true, is that wokeness is essentially based off of some philosophy, and everyone gets mad when whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it post-cultural, post-structural neo-Marxism, or whether you want to call it cultural Marxism, or whatever you want to call it. All those philosophies are they took a lot of Marxist elements, and they were took out class and they replaced it with race, or they replaced it with sex. And this is something that's been going on for 30 years in academia. This is what CRT is. And a lot of these, if not all of these ideas, all these woke ideas were designed specifically to supplant, subvert, and destroy liberalism. And that's why, you go and you see the communists online, they're always complaining about the damn liberals and how the liberals always side with the fascists and everything. So, I would think Destiny would be aware of that, but I don't know. Maybe he's not. So,
gotcha. Does he just think it's like lower stakes than that?
Well, he probably thinks it's lower stakes in terms of, part of the problem. This is kind of what's annoying. This is why I don't like Trump a lot. Trump, I'm not sure wokeness would have reached the pinnacle that it did if it wasn't for Trump being elected. Like wokeness is definitely on the decline, but wokeness definitely reached its peak under Trump, because when Trump, the woke idea is that we live in this white supremacist society, blah, 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 blah. And they so easily pointed to Trump and say, aha, see, this proves everything we believe is true. And some people will say, oh my God, they all voted for Trump because they're racist. And then the mainstream left would run with this narrative because they want to hit Trump with the racist stick as much as possible. But so since Trump is so divisive, understandably so, and since especially with January 6th and all this other stuff, it's very difficult to talk to someone on the left who doesn't like Trump and say, oh yeah, I can agree with you, Trump sucks, blah, 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 but also look at this huge threat coming from the left and all of these cultural institutions and college institutions and academic institutions that are basically being subverted by communists, because people don't it's really annoying when you talk about politics online, because, and I think you said this, politics is a team sport. And so whenever you talk about the left is fucking up, it's viewed as you're just giving the right ammunition.
Yeah.
And so it's so as long as Trump exists as this polarizing figure that is viewed as super dangerous to people on the left, so many people on the left can't acknowledge what I think is the very real threat of this sort of postmodern neo-Marxist subversion in so many institutions.
So you're saying life as a radical centrist is difficult?
Of course it is. Listen, we're the only people with free will, so it's very difficult.
Fair enough. I do not consider myself a centrist, but yeah, it's not being in the one of the big camps can be alienating, that's for sure. But no, especially when you want to criticize both sides, believe me. And there are other disincentives against doing that, because you don't want to piss off some of your audience, but that's inevitable if you're going to criticize a certain faction, right?
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of ebbs and flows with our audience. Usually whenever we start bashing on Trump, we lose 300 people or something.
I looked through your I looked through your comment section. You got a lot of TDSs, so
yeah, a lot of people accuse me and Adam of TDS because we're not fans of the phony elector scheme and January 6th and stuff of that nature. And yeah, it's fine, whatever, But listen, as you said, this is the trials and tribulations of being the only intelligent. The people with true free will, the enlightened centrist.
That's a fair point. Okay. Stug for $10. Thank you so much. People don't believe that the woke stuff is a bunch of ideas designed to overthrow liberalism because they don't want to attribute those goals to the more in to the more ignorant people who adopt them. That's a fair point. And I think like certain things I've seen with like James Lindsay, and I don't pay that close of attention to him, but he'll like fixate on some corporate, pandering and be like Marxism.
Right.
Rah! And I think like, and I don't think that's most of it is, I mean, I don't think that people on the left really understand the roots of their ideas for the most part, but I certainly don't think that's why like Target's doing it or whatever. But also like, there are also some laudable goals mixed in with wokeism, like in a certain respect, like, yeah, I don't know, like not ending racism, like, or
Sure.
ending racism or whatever. It's bad to be racist. Like, that's true. And obviously the wokesters seize on that and for their own purposes, but it's a big rat's nest of different intentions. And I think that's why sort of the people who go straight to Marxism kind of alienate some people.
Well, I think you're completely correct. There's a couple issues, like talking about anything being Marxist or communist, and I bring this up, and people on the right get very mad, but they have to take their lumps. Okay. So the Republicans have made a lot, like just as like the Democrats now made like one of their big weapons is to call people on the right racist.
Hmm.
But a lot of people don't realize, because maybe they're younger, is that for Republicans for decades, they had a weapon too, which was to call Democrats communist.
And then unpatriotic after on 9/11.
Right. But I'm even going like like in the 80s,
Yeah.
calling people communist was like still a thing. It's still
Mhm.
like a big thing. Socialist. I mean, even you see this with Obama, right? They called Obamacare socialized medicine, which is horrendously a joke, right? Like that has anything to do with socialized medicine. And so, like, I think the Republicans cried wolf so hard on socialism that for a lot of older people, because obviously the younger people are socialists, so they know they're in favor of it, but the older people who grew up kind of, they became callous to anyone talking about communism for the last 30 years. And so they're kind of immune to it. And now the
Mhm.
actual socialists are taking advantage of that and basically subverting them under their nose.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a big problem. I agree with you in terms of like, part of the issue is that when we talk about these philosophies and whether they're subverting liberalism, like I'm talking about it in terms of like the people that wrote the philosophies, like the academics, like that is their intention. But as Stug said, which is true, a lot of people adopt this shit and they have no clue or understanding what they're adopting. A lot of old people, a lot of boomers adopt this stuff because they just think like, oh, when I was a kid, I lived through the civil rights movement and this was like the hip new thing the kids was doing. And now this is the hip new things these kids are doing. And I want to be hip and cool. And like, that's the end of their thought process. They don't
Mhm.
understand any of the philosophical underpinnings. They don't understand that there is a big push online anyway amongst kids to be socialists. They're just completely like, they just don't get it. They're just completely, detached from it, which is understandable because if you're like in your 40s or 50s or 60s, why would you know what the fuck's going on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to know any of this stuff. And then the problem is that the older people that do know this is going on because they're on Twitter or they work in newspapers,
Mhm.
they're just still stuck in the mindset. And we heard this for years, which is like, oh, that's just like, they poo-poo it. That's just kids on college campuses. They'll grow out of it. It's not a big deal. And it's like, are they growing out of it? And that's part of why I was so happy to see, and I think this was a real turning point, was having the Ivy League college professors in Congress and their inability to say that like advocating for, violence against Jews was was against the policies of a college. That was like a real eye-opening moment, I think, to a lot of Americans to be like, oh shit, like this is crazy. And this
Mhm.
isn't just kids, like it's moved up to the administration. It's moving up the ranks, of people. Like, and it should be scary to people that the biggest political streamer right now is Hassan, is a
Yeah.
socialist, right? That means something. And so for
Mhm.
people to just wave it away like it doesn't mean anything I mean, we're far past that. I think people are starting to open their eyes to that.
You could be right. So, two things on what you said. I absolutely think the right has played a role in normalizing socialism in, calling Barack Obama at every turn a socialist, and he's
Right.
going to destroy America. Whatever's left of America will be divided between Mexico, China, and Russia after
Yeah.
Barack Hussein Obama has gotten done with it. Like, talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Obama derangement syndrome was very real.
True. Yeah.
And so calling every little thing he did socialism didn't help the case against socialism, I think. As far as like the woke stuff and its roots in, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, I don't deny any of that. One of the things that annoys me personally is I think some people seize on very low stakes examples of wokeness that may well be the capstone of something more nefarious, and they try to turn that into like their case against something deeper. Because like Noah Rothman has this concept called entry level politics, and it's like the idea that you embrace sort of trivial matters and because they're sort of ostensibly about something deeper. And ironically, he makes this case in a book about wokeness, and he accuses the woke people of doing that. Like, oh yeah, we're talking about gender representation at Wall Street, and that's sort of vaguely about economics. Therefore, we're talking about very substantive things. And in reality, you're just talking about more women in the boardroom or whatever. And I think there's an opposite effect of that, or an opposite. Entry-level politics is playing the opposite side of the board. If you can talk about like the latest pride thing at Target and, attribute it to, or, talk about Marxism, you can make it sound like you're talking about something more deep and philosophical when really you're doing just as standard bitching about stuff you don't like. That's just my thought. But
well, it's difficult because I agree with you, but I also think, and this is funny, this is the very first video I ever did on YouTube, was about, why do people care that there's like like there was back in the day, there was the female remake of the Ghostbusters, right? And people got mad about this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, why do people care about this? Because if they had done that, if in like the mid 2000s, they did an all female remake of Ghostbusters, nobody would have cared whatsoever. But it wouldn't have been perceived as like political in like 2005 to do a female remake of Ghostbusters. We've just been like, oh, this is just like the woman version of it, right? Where now, because of the culture war, hashtag culture war, everything is seen through this lens of like what it means politically. And so when Target does like the pride thing, people perceive it kind of as what you're saying, as like part of the grander movement.
Yeah.
And the question is like, okay, so I'm sure the reason this is so annoying is because I'm sure that like the executives at Target that are making some decision to do pride shit, like they're not neo-Marxists. They're like on the board of fucking Target.
Yeah.
Okay? like they don't understand or know any of this ideology or anything, whatever. They're like, what are the kids like? Oh, they like gay shit. Okay, let's put a bunch of gay
we
shit
can make more money off that.
Yeah, let's put a bunch of rainbows and stuff. Yeah. That's the end of the thought process. But then, so that's true. They're not thinking about it from like a conspiratorial standpoint. And so I think it's wrong for people to say that they are. But it's more complicated because it does create an issue where so like the way that I think culture changes in our society is that there's all these extreme forces that are always trying to pull culture in various directions. And it's just some environmental thing happens that allows one of these factions to win. And unfortunately, because the quote woke or whatever we want to call it are so good at like hiding in plain sight, the fact that Target does have like some massive pride thing, I think does allow the more insidious aspects of wokeness to further worm its way into our society and our culture, whether it's through these DEI programs or whether it's through like, you have to just, do affirmative care for trans children or some of these other issues. Just because like everyone is stupid. And so they like, oh, pride at Target. And in their mind, it all like meshes together to be the same thing.
You could be right. I'll say this, as someone who's like remembers back in the day when Bill O'Reilly was on the warpath against Happy Holidays.
Yes.
My knee-jerk reaction is that it's just the usual pendulum swing, because like I don't know if you remember the War on Christmas stuff.
I do.
But it was
yeah.
Basically, as long as I've been alive, people give a shit, then they don't, and we go back and forth
Yes.
between Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And part of me wants to say that that's basically what a lot of this woke stuff is just like, you know, the pendulum swinging back and forth. But you could be right that it's a more insidious infiltration, and in some respects, I do think that's true. But I don't know. I think it's more because you have so many different people with different intentions. Like you said, the target people give a shit about making money; they don't care about anything else.
Right.
That it needs to be parsed out more finely, and that certain people come at it too bluntly.
Oh, of course.
100%,
yeah.
Are you familiar with the concept of a cascade preference or preference cascade? I can't remember which one it is.
No.
So it's this idea that like most of society is not invested in culture war stuff. Most society doesn't give a shit. They go along to get along, which is true. And basically you just have these different factions who are pulling everybody in one way or another. And then like basically whoever has the upper hand, the most of the culture is going to go along with them. That's the idea, is that you really don't have to have most people invested.
They just don't want to make waves.
Exactly.
Right.
And so in that sense, sure, it could be the case that like America writ large is getting pulled into something more nefarious, even by Target. So that would be my steel manning of that position, if you will.
Well, yeah. So, but again, it's like, it's not that Target is nefarious. It's just that the actual nefarious people use Target doing Pride Month as the cover to push their nefarious dog shit. And then, though now, and James and I'm happy to see James is pushing back on this very strongly, because now there's a lot of pendulum swing pushing the other direction, where this kind of like the weirdo dissident right people who are Christian nationalists or some flavor of monarchist or some flavor of neo-fascist, that are basically trying to push this whole argument that like, well, the only way to stop wokeness and communism is to basically give up capitalist democracy completely and live in some other, something further to the right than that. Yeah. And unfortunately, that does seem to be gaining a little bit of traction. So I hope that doesn't become a big thing going forward.
Yeah, these are the people who post memes about how great life was as a peasant in the Middle Ages. Because, like you only work 90 days a year or some bullshit like that. But
well, it's funny because like both the far right and the far left make the same argument.
I know. Well, and my favorite thing about like the things were good back in the good old days is like, especially the further back you go, the more likely it is that you could actually embrace that lifestyle. Like there are Amish people in this country who hardly use electricity. Like,
yeah, go do that.
Yeah, go do that. Get offline and fucking live as a peasant.
Yeah.
But okay. Words Hurt for $10. Thank you so much. The reason you guys were attacked on Destiny's stream is because Destiny is ignorant of the threat woke is. He views you guys as being concerned about an alien invasion, woke, while Cheeto Hitler is in power. So that's Words Hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably correct. I think I said that, but like to something to that effect. But yeah, no, that's exactly it. And that's the problem. Trump is such an energy well that he just draws everything towards him. So
for sure.
Because if you even remember the original split, the original anti-SJW split was about Trump. It was during that election, were you going to vote for Trump? Or are you going to vote for Hillary? Are you going to vote for Bernie? Or are you not going to vote? And that kind of was the divide that first split the anti-SJW community in like a bunch of pieces.
Yeah. The community, if you remember, was like an offshoot of YouTube atheism.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was mostly because of the personalities involved. It was like Thunderfoot and The Amazing Atheist were the ones who really got it going. And so naturally, like, I don't know if you remember Dave Rubin when he first started his show, he had a lot of like atheist thinkers on to talk to them. And then like it kind of took that split towards like, obviously Trump in your respect, but also like much more conservative ideas like theocracy and stuff like that. Words Hurt follows up with a $2 super chat. Thank you. Fictional alien invasion while Trump is in power.
There you go.
Okay. I got a bunch of questions about your thoughts on Jordan Peterson. And we've been talking about the woke stuff. So how do you feel about Jordan Peterson now?
So, I mean, whenever I'm asked this question, I always say, I still think like if you watch his interviews, I mean, I don't, but when I've seen them, they still seem to be fine. They still seem to be mostly normal. mostly classic Jordan Peterson when I watch some of his videos. But I'll temper that with I haven't watched a whole bunch, so maybe I'm wrong. It's just that his Twitter stuff is so crazy that it puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth, including my own. And so I feel like he would have just been, in a much better position if he just stayed off Twitter. A
I
year
think that's
ago.
true for most people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the heel turn. I don't know the exact point, but there was some weird heel turn where he just was like he posted a bunch of clown shit. It's like stop posting pictures of clowns. Like I don't know, it's just stop it, Jordan. And he kind of I think he fell off because of that. At least in my mind, he did.
So my thoughts on Jordan Peterson have always been he's clearly a smart man, and a lot of what he says is eminently sensible. Like I read his first book, not his first book, but his 12 Rules for Power or 12 Rules for whatever life. And I thought like, man, it's more or less standard self-help stuff, written in a certain Jordan Peterson style, which most standard self-help stuff is decent advice in its way. I was never big into the woke stuff after 2017. So by the time he came on the scene, it was like I was already done with that. I just didn't enjoy it as a topic. But I always got the impression that he's definitely a dude who drank his own Kool-Aid. And I don't think that's helped him out.
It's probably maybe, I don't know. It's possible. Like an ego thing.
The only time I've ever talked about him publicly on my YouTube channel is when he had his big spiel on Russia after they invaded Ukraine. And I was like, my conclusion was basically like, this guy wants to make the war about his thing so that he has something relevant to say about it. And I think that's contemptible regardless of who does it. But I would think he's smarter than that, but I guess not.
The thing that's annoying and frustrating is that, and I notice this not just Jordan Peterson, but like basically everyone that's not me, because I'm perfect and everyone else isn't.
Sure.
Is that it's like, okay, so as we get kind of disillusioned with understanding how messed up the mainstream is and how messed up the mainstream media is and how bad the reporting is on all these topics, people are always looking for shortcuts for information to understand something, because people don't want to just say, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, right? We want to have someone tell us their opinion and us to adopt that opinion.
Yeah.
And the problem is, and this I saw this a lot with the Russia stuff, was that because so many people were like so turned off on the mainstream, rightfully so, it put a lot of people in a mindset of like, well, I'm just going to take the opposite position of the mainstream. So if the mainstream is saying Russia bad, well, there must be some other side to it because the mainstream is always wrong, right? And so some people were just kind of reflexively like that. And then Jordan Peterson, I think it was not that he was necessarily reflexively anti-mainstream media, but he starts listening to people who are on his side but are like stupid. So you have your, Mike Cernovich's or your Jack Posobics or people of that nature on Twitter who like, they're on the right side of like being anti the mainstream media and woke stuff back in the day, but like they also say a lot of crazy shit or a lot of things that are just completely like headcanon, whatsoever. And unfortunately, I think you have people like Jordan Peterson, like they'll start trusting these people because those people were defending him when he's being attacked by the mainstream media. And then he listens to them and assumes that they're saying something that's true when very often they're saying a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. So basically what Jordan Peterson did on Russia is he did not take Russia's side in any meaningful way. What he did was he said, basically an element in this war is that Russia is looking at the madness of the West, where we can't even tell you what a woman is. And they're saying, oh, they're trying to do that to Ukraine. They're going to infiltrate with their neo-Marxism. And we know the history of Marxism because our country suffered greatly because of those ideas. Therefore, that's a reason we have to invade. And that's a really tenuous case. Like he's connecting a lot of dots that have no business being connected. And I also don't think I think it just fails on its face. That's not a reason they invaded. But yeah, I think like culture warriors are going to, when that's their only thing, and that's not Jordan Peterson's only thing, but a lot of those people you named, that is their only thing. Of course, they're going to look at this through like the biggest news story of the year, which that was. Right. They're going to look at it through that lens and be like, oh, how do I square peg round hole this one? And that's what they came up with.
Yeah, because it was those people, a lot of people on Twitter were making those arguments that this had some like that Russia's invasion of Ukraine had some culture war issue to it. And I think Russia even claimed this, but it's like they claim like a million things because they're just trying to have like, as broad appeal as possible to as many different people as possible. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's hilarious that the same people that are so skeptical of every time our government says something, they don't believe it. But then if fucking Vladimir Putin, who's basically dictator of Russia, says it, they're like, I guess that's right. Where were all the cries, all these people like saying, all those same people who even bring up the culture war stuff with Ukraine, which is not why Russia invaded Ukraine. And that's frankly silly if you think that. Those same people will talk about how, America went to war in Iraq for the oil, right? We did it for the oil. We did it for the oil. And it's like silence the fact that, when Russia grabbed Crimea, it was like a massive oil grab, right? Or even, grabbing, the Donetsk, I think there's some like massive oil and lithium deposits in like that region that they're going for. Like for some reason, all that goes out the window when Russia does it. So it's just, but that's the problem. It's just, so I still like Jordan Peterson. I still, it's just frustrating because I think a big problem with the quote anti-woke side or whatever you want to call it was that we really needed people who seem credible to the mainstream that could go out there and just be very cogent and intelligent and like adult and mature and make good arguments. And Jordan Peterson, like at first was that guy, because whenever he get like reamed by the media, but he'd go out there and he'd, talk to Kathy Newman and he would just obviously look like he was correct and she was insane. And I think that's part of why the media hated him so much. And the media's attack on Jordan Peterson was probably some of the most insane, dishonest shit I've ever seen in my life. Back in 2017, 2018, they're calling him an alt-right Nazi and all that stuff. But then, so that's why it's unfortunate to see, like, when he goes on Twitter and says a bunch of crazy shit on Twitter, like it hurts his ability to then go out in the mainstream and do this. It's the same thing. This is why I was kind of annoyed with James Lindsay, like saying all the crazy shit he does on Twitter, is because he would be like the perfect vehicle to go into the mainstream media, go on all these shows, be the guy that everyone points to talk about all the woke stuff, but he can't because he just is so wild on Twitter that it hurts his credibility.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Russia's propaganda strategy is very much throw shit against the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
And so they will say things like, the West is insane because they're of their goofy gender ideology. But then they'll also like open a Stalin center, and change their theme, their national anthem back to the Soviet melody.
Right.
Like
right.
And it's just disheartening to see people pick up on it. Like any of it's sincere. And it's not just, some of it's sincere, but like, of course they threw that out for the, the culture warriors that's
right.
And so they're trying to get sympathy, but
that argument was even so retarded from Russia because, if you look at Russia's stats, their demographics are so much worse than America's. They have a lot worse church attendance than America. They have a lot more abortions than America. You're like, oh, okay, you're protecting your culture from the West. What are you talking about? You're like so much worse than us.
Yeah, I mean the question I asked in that video was like, what social malady do they think they're warding off by like dismissing gender ideology? Like what worse could happen to them?
To Russia, yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. That's like I said, I think people and again, I think Jordan Peterson's a smart guy, but I definitely think he made the current story about his thing and just fell into that trap, which is a lot of people do.
Sure.
Okay. And also TIE Fighter has one more question is, are owls birds?
Owls are birds, yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Sometimes they're fish.
There's a big owl in my parents' backyard.
You know what? Someone asked, they said, who's your favorite philosopher? Obviously it's Jordan Peterson.
Okay. Fair enough. And I would say he's actually a philosopher too, whereas the people I named necessarily weren't. Okay. Why do you love ducks so much?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm fighting a horse-sized duck to the death. Okay. There's no love there.
See, that's another
beating it down. What are you talking about?
That's another reason why I wouldn't want to fight one of his, because ducks are so cute. They really are.
Ducks?
Yeah.
They're not cute.
Yes, they are.
A duck?
Ducks
I mean, they're not like ugly, but they're not cute. They're just like I don't know. It's like a duck. It's like neither. It's like in the middle, exact centrist position of like cute versus ugly.
So if you see a mama duck with her ducklings behind her walking across the road, you
Whoa,
just
wait,
run them
whoa,
over.
whoa. That's a little different. Okay, you're adding much context. Baby animals, almost all baby animals are really cute.
You ever see like
Almost.
some when they come right out of the womb are like really gross and
Okay,
pink.
every animal when it comes out of the womb is disgusting, right?
This
But
is
once they
true.
get a little bit of fur on themselves,
True. Baby penguins are really cute.
of course, yeah.
All right. A lot of people ask me about what are your thoughts on the deep states and corruption within the 3-letter agencies?
I don't know. What are your thoughts on the deep state, Steve?
What are my thoughts? People were asking for your thoughts, but
my thoughts? Well,
yeah.
I'll say my thoughts are I think the deep state is nonsense. I don't think there's there's a couple things. There's something that's real and there's something that's fake. The fake thing is the idea that there's like some magical, unified, monopolistic force that exists within the government that takes marching orders from some top-down general who makes the secret shadow government that makes the the whims of whatever really goes on in America, right? Which is what a lot of people think when they talk about the deep state. They think there's some shadowy boardroom of people somewhere, and they control everything, and the president's just like some kind of figurehead. Okay, that's nonsense. What is real though is there's this. So in a lot of large agencies, or if you ever worked in like a big corporation or something, if your boss tells you something and you think that your boss is an idiot, or your boss is an idiot, but you can't tell him that, you do this thing where you slow walk it, right?
Yep.
You're like, oh, I'm gonna, like, I'll get right on that, and then you just never get on that.
Yeah.
And you hope he forgets or something, or your department gets reorganized or something happens, right? And so I think definitely a lot of that was happening with Trump. I think definitely a lot of that happens with all presidents, because people, part of the reason I really like the Fifth Risk book I was listening to is because a lot of people don't appreciate how immensely complicated it is to be president or to run all these various organizations. And like, he gave this really good example about how it can take literally 1 to 2 years just for the person who's assigned to head a department by the president just to understand what the fuck the department does. Okay, that's how complicated this shit is. And so, I mean, that is part of the problem with our current electoral process, is that every 4 to 8 years, you have all these key positions basically changing. And this is like the real deep state, is because those key top positions change and people don't really understand what a lot of these agencies do. They have to rely on second, third people in those positions who are maybe not, who have been there for like 20, 30 years. And that's the real deep state, is that there is a contingency of people who understand how all this shit works. And all those people that understand how this shit works obviously are people who want to maintain the machine, want to maintain the government, want to maintain the country. And I think for the most part, most of the people have, whether you like them or not, I think they believe they're acting on good intentions of maintaining the country. There's not some like evil, secret, shadowy thing going on there. And that's the real deep state, quote, deep state that's happening.
And understand that the heads of these administrations are selected based on, can they pass Senate approval? Not are they the most qualified for the
competent job, or good for the role. Yeah.
So to me, I think you hit the nail on the head. It comes back to never attribute to conspiracy what can be best explained by incompetence. Right. And that's in that, like, in this sense, no, there's not this gigantic cabal of people coordinating things like, oh, we're going to take down the presidents and we're going to do this and we're going to enact this agenda. It's people looking out for their jobs. It's like, you have this massive federal bureaucracy, and they're tasked to do something, and they just want, like most people, they want to hold on to their position and whatever comes with that. And so they're willing to act in their self-interest, but they're not part of some giant cabal. It's sort of like my time. I used to work for the military industrial complex. I don't know if you knew. Yeah. And supposedly we were running America's foreign policy. It's like, we can't get orders out on time. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I think that the conspiracy that it's accused of is just too grand for it. And the bureaucracy, that's not to say there aren't problems with bureaucracy. There are massive problems with bureaucracy. I could talk about that all day.
Sure.
But yeah, it's more these people operating on a self-interest. And if you like, I know I've heard like intelligence officials talk about this before. They're like, no, we're way more concerned about like rival agencies and keeping our turf away from theirs because we don't want to lose out on resources that we would get because like, oh, the FBI is solving this problem now, so we're going to implement budget cuts to the CIA or whatever. Like that's what's at the top of their mind. They're not like, let's assassinate the president so we can give the world over to the globalists. It's just so yeah, it's all a lot less romantic than some people make it out to be.
No, I think that's a great point, and it annoys me. Like, I think 9/11 is a good one to point to because it's like, okay, so people that believe like the conspiracy that the government did 9/11 or something, it's like, okay, so the government is so competent that they pulled off this insane terrorist attack that with no one blowing the whistle, right? With no actual real solid evidence to point to them, they're able to pull off the most convoluted, complicated terrorist attack ever. Which, by the way, if it ever got out that the government was responsible, all those people would be put to death, right? And like massive parts of the entire government would be dissolved. Like the risk for this would be like so insanely high for such a little reward, right? To invade Afghanistan and Iraq, right? So the government's so competent that they can do this, but they cannot competently invade and control Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
B, they couldn't even fucking lie about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Why the fuck couldn't they just make it up? If they're willing to like do a terrorist attack on America, they could just make up nukes in Iraq. Like, what the fuck?
Do you remember in 2016 there was that clip going around? Somebody spliced together a bunch of local news clips from they were owned by like one affiliate or different affiliations of a big corporation.
Yeah, they all said the same thing about.
Yeah, and people were like, it's proof of a conspiracy. It's like the only conspiracy here is like a corporation's trying to protect its brand and cover its ass. Yeah. It's like, look at all these car commercials that talk about how safe and fuel efficient their vehicles are. My God.
Yeah, well, you brought up it's funny because you were talking about how you work for the military industrial complex. I feel like so much of these conspiracies are from people who've never worked in a field related to this stuff, and that's how you can imagine all this stuff. It's like whenever you work in any field, here's the true scary part of life. Okay, any job anyone listening has ever been in, I'm sure you've experienced that. Like the majority of people around you are like stupid and incompetent at the job. Okay. Well, guess what? That applies to every job on the face of Earth, including all the government agencies and the CIA and the FBI and all the deep states. Okay. They're all also a bunch of stupid, incompetent people there.
It's sort of like when you're growing up, when you're real little, you think your parents are like these geniuses and they're capable of doing anything. And then at a certain point, you realize they're human beings and that they're completely fallible. It's like, that's what it's actually like when you go inside the military industrial complex. And I'm sure that's the same with like the FBI or whatever. It's just.
Sure. Yes, of course. Of course it is. Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why people are so quick to go to conspiracy, and part of it's because being a conspiracy theorist like makes you the genius that most of the world, you're in on some secret that most people aren't. It also allows you to explain anything. It's almost like how religious people are often mocked for saying God done it, which some religious people do. It's like it's the same thing with conspiracy theories. There's like, oh yeah, this nefarious group did it. That's why it happened this way because they wanted it that way. And then they'll, it's like jank with like, oh yeah, they wanted oil prices to go up. That's why, or they want a war so they can get their profits for the weapon sales. When he taught, he doesn't have to know anything about Iranian American relationships, but there he goes explaining everything to you.
Yeah. No, yeah, the 100% that, and also like, our brains are wired to just recognize patterns and everything. Yep. And so, and we get a little dopamine hit whenever we recognize a pattern. So, it's more comfortable mentally to look at this and say, oh, here's the pattern, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, there's no pattern, just a bunch of idiots, right? Running around being self-interested.
Exactly. And then also there's wish thinking to it. Like people who have these really grand designs for society. Like the left wants to completely transform our society. They want to believe that somebody is capable of actually doing that.
Right.
And doing it well, which according to them, it's the deep state or whoever is doing it. And obviously it's not just I don't mean to pick on the left. There are lots of people who do that, but it seems like, people who really want to change things quickly think that we're actually capable of doing that. It's like, no, trying to change society is like moving an aircraft carrier. It's not that easy.
Yeah, this is it's very difficult and impossible. Like I don't know how people can think that the government or really anyone could figure out how to change society in one way or the other. Okay, like look at if you believe in like the deep state or any of that stuff, some sort of grand conspiracy. I mean, they couldn't even get Donald Trump to not get elected.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. They couldn't keep him from the nomination. Like,
they couldn't keep him from the nomination. They couldn't keep him from getting elected. All the mental manipulation and magic in the world didn't stop people from voting for him.
If anything, it was their own folly that helped him. Like news organizations constantly covering him. Why?
Yes.
Not because they had some devious plan to get him elected, but because they were like, oh, people will watch this. Let's put him on TV. And they were right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's hard. And that's what's frustrating to me is that, people will just dismiss it and they'll just move to the next thing. Right.
Right.
So
And then once in a while, they'll make a prediction and it'll be like completely wrong, but they'll never go back to it because
they'll never go back. Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Right.
So Stug says for $5, thank you, Stug. Sitch now understands why Philosophy Tube was right about capitalism. Shaking my head. Okay, what's the context here?
So we covered a video, Philosophy Tube covered on capitalism, where basically Philosophy Tube, who's I'm sure you're aware of this person, Abigail Thorne, who's complete retard, socialist. They were talking about how when they were working a job as a waiter, this was before they transitioned, so they were still a waiter at the time. They didn't understand why they were getting paid $8 an hour and then serving someone an $8 beer.
Oh my God.
And like they're like, it just isn't fair. Like, where's all that money coming from? And me and Adam had to pause the video and yell at them. Like, okay, you understand that like you're just a person who's physically handing them an object, right? You didn't buy all the beer, you didn't buy this building, you didn't buy the land, you didn't buy for the electricity that powers the building, you didn't buy for the menus, the tables, you're not paying for everyone else to like staff this fucking restaurant, you're not paying for the cooks or the food. Like you just go through like all the millions of expenses in the restaurant. So it's so like brain numbingly retarded that you're like, why am I getting paid $8 to hand an $8 beer?
And it's funny because profit margins on restaurants are like razor thin.
Yeah, they're notoriously bad. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's like the worst example to bring up.
Yeah. Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
No, I tried to and I gave up.
Ari Bucco, he owns a restaurant, and then he says owning a restaurant's like owning an elephant. It's expensive and eventually takes a shit on your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
But Jessica Burbank, she had like an Instagram story essentially doing the same thing. Like, oh, you're paying these workers to do this, but they create this much in value. You're taking their money. That's
the value theory of the Marx nonsense. Yeah.
And I think, again, that's another thing of not being on the other side of that. It's like the only reason why you say things like that is because you don't actually understand what management does, or like all that goes into everything that goes into making this operation run. Like having been on the labor and management side, like, I can see all the costs that go into everything. And they're like, labor's a part of it. Labor's a very important part of it. Don't get me wrong. But like, there's way more other shit that we have to be worried about. And that's where our money goes. So in a way, I think I would think that's why that rhetoric's appealing. It's because it's populist in nature. Most people are not in management. Most people are workers. So, and most people hate their bosses. So I'm receptive to it.
Just as like the people who talk about the deep state and never worked in these roles, like the communists that go on about this, you're right, never worked as any sort of manager, never owned anything. Because it's like there's nothing more obnoxious than being one of those positions and realizing so many of the people you hire are like fucking lazy or stupid, or they're just like trying to like rip you off, like, and I don't understand how people don't understand this. Like every time you work any job, there's always like out of every like 10 people, there's like one person who does everyone's work.
Yeah.
It's like the one like super go-getter, like competent person who's basically holding everything up. And it's like, you've never been on the other side of that and just been like, oh, I have to deal with all this shit. I have to pay all these bills. I have to manage all this stuff. It's such a hassle. Yeah,
it's there's a whole different world out there. Fat brown buffalo for $10. God sent a Satan down from heaven so that he may battle the nefarious deep state, save us from damnation, and lead us to glory. Donald J. Trump, America's hero, Earth's savior. Jack Posobiec. Did he actually say that?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Oh my God.
I can't tell if that's parody or not. Is that I don't know.
That is that's a Ben Garrison cartoon in quotation form, is what that
It is. Yeah, that is.
What was I gonna say? Oh, fuck, I just forgot. Something about insane Trump rhetoric. I don't know. Long short story for
I don't think that was I think that was a parody because I just looked on Twitter and I couldn't find it. So, but it's close enough.
Like I said, if Ben Garrison was a quotation dude and not an artist, that's what that's what he would say. Mm-hmm. Long short story for $2. I owned a restaurant, lost between $250K and $500K, and I'm sure your employees had to pay part of that, didn't they? Oh wait, no, they didn't. They just had to find new jobs.
Yeah, it's like that's another huge part of it. Yeah, as an owner, you invest all this capital into the business, and you're putting all this risk out there, and they're like, "Well, why don't I get everything?" It's like, well, you just showed up. Like, what the fuck?
That's like, Amazon's the big baddie now, and it's like they're like, "Oh, Jeff Bezos has all these people working for him, making money, and he just sits around and counts it." It's like, dude, Amazon lost money for its first 10 years of existence.
Right.
Same with YouTube. Like, YouTube has never made money, but I'm making money here. Make money off my videos.
That's another thing that's baffling is, I'm sure there's some businesses somewhere where the person who built the business sold it or is is not doing anything. They're just hiring someone to manage it, but that's not the average business, right? The owner is heavily involved in managing and running the business, overwhelming majority of the time. So the idea, they say this about Elon Musk, for all the stupid decisions that Elon Musk is making about Twitter, which I think he is, even though obviously he's very smart about it, there's other companies. Elon Musk is not just sitting around playing video games all day, raking in money. He's heavily invested in managing all these businesses.
Yeah. Well, and the truth about trust fund babies is usually when they take over a business, they crash it. Or, there's some study about longevity wealth, and it was on the
third generation. Yeah. It's all gone, yeah.
Yeah. They just go broke because they don't know how to actually take care of themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good problem to have if you're a parent. How do I teach my son how to be rich and not be a complete bum? But it's a very real problem.
Sure.
Okay. Sean Fitzgerald. I don't know if you know who that is.
The name sounds kind of familiar, but it's not ringing a bell.
Okay, his hairline is worse than mine. But
oh my God, shots fired. Oh, clip it.
Anyways, he asks, why does Sitch continually defame the honorable procedures at Salem?
Oh my God.
So Sean is very anti-witch.
He's pro witch burning. Did you know this? Sean is very pro.
I understand the context. This is one of the few times I understand the context.
Okay.
Why are you for witches?
So first of all, I'm not for witches. Okay. What was the name? Michelle Bachmann. Remember that?
No, you're thinking of Christine O'Donnell.
Oh, Christine O'Donnell. You're right. Yeah. Where she's like, I'm not a witch. There was some, if you know, there's no time, but there was some candidate for Republican primary or something where she was accused of being a witch. She had to literally put out an ad saying she's not a witch.
She got the Senate nomination during the Tea Party wave for Delaware, and she was going against Chris Coons in a very winnable race. But the Republicans put up somebody generic who would have won the race, but then the Tea Partiers were like, "Give us Christine O'Donnell," and they got the witch lady. Who was just had no business being in public office. And between her and Sharon Angle in Nevada, they lost two easily winnable elections.
That's the deep state. What do you mean?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the deep state rigged it or something like that. Yeah. And so the Republicans in a wave year did not take the Senate. And just because they sent up these idiots in the primaries. But anyways, Christine O'Donnell was at one point, she was a Wiccan, I think, and so she had to release this commercial talking about how she wasn't a witch.
Yes.
But anyways, okay.
Tell us why you're listen, if I'm pro Wiccans, if Wiccans want to go do Wiccan things, okay, that's their right. In America, we have freedom of religion, right? If women want to dance around the forest, burning effigies to Orange Man Bad or whatever the fuck they do. That's their right to fucking do so in America, damn it. Okay. So first of all, I'm pro Wiccan. All right.
Okay.
But secondly, I am against. Okay, Sean is in favor of the burning of witches in the 16 and 1700s, which I say no. I know this is a very controversial position, but I say that it was wrong in the early days of America and New England to go take women and burn them alive, accusing them of witchcraft. I know that a lot of people will disagree with me with this, but I'm going to stand true to my beliefs here.
Okay, so you think Jebediah's crops just failed on their own?
Yeah, I do. I think the fact that he wasn't watering them and
wasn't plowing them.
Yeah, I wasn't plowing them, and he was just plowing his neighbor's wife instead. I think that's probably what led to the crop failure. That'd be my guess.
I don't know. Sounds like I think the easier. I'm a fan of parsimony. Simplest explanation is the best. Sounds like a witch did it.
That's the simple explanation. Magic is the simple explanation.
Some witch took a goat and sacrificed it, and that's why Jebediah's crops failed.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't even know why this. I just remember this. There's actually an entire Batman comic. There's a 6-series Batman comic where he gets trapped through a bunch of different time periods for some bullshit reason. And one of the time periods, the entire comic is him being a witch hunter in New England.
That's awesome.
In the 1700s, but it's Batman, so it's just him debunking all of the witch claims. No, there's no witch here.
So he's being the world's greatest detective even back then.
Yes, exactly. That's what we needed back in. We needed Batman to solve this. Okay.
Yeah, well, they would have just burned him too. It was he likes match.
He just kicks their ass. Okay,
fair enough. By the way, the DC animated movies are great. They need to make one of that because I want to see it.
Yeah, why are the animated DC movies are usually so good and the live action ones are so awful?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing there.
What's the best DC animated movie?
Oh, that's a good question. I liked Under the Red Hood.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
What's your favorite?
I really like the Batman Beyond movie, Return of the Joker.
Mm-hmm. That's a dark movie too.
It is, but that's a great fucking movie.
Yeah, it is.
I really like the animated, what's it called? The one, I think it's called Doom. It's the one where the bad guys in comic it's Ra's al Ghul, but in the animated movie it's Vandal Savage takes all of Batman's contingencies to use against the Justice League.
That's a good one,
and he uses it against all of them. I really like that one. Almost all the Batman ones are really good.
What was I think it was Justice League Doom, where Thanos wins and he's in control of the Earth or whatever.
Thanos?
Or not Thanos, Darkseid. Yeah. The people Thanos ripped off.
There was Superman arc in the animated Superman where that happened.
No, I remember that was the very end of that series.
There was a Justice League cartoon movie where Darkseid wins.
Yeah, he's you're
talking about it's like Justice League Dark.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah, that's a very dark film, but it's good.
Oh, and it's the Flashpoint cartoon movie is really good too.
That's where he changes the timeline and Wonder Woman.
He saves his mom and it fucks up the timeline.
And Atlantis is at war with the wherever Wonder Woman lives.
Diana, the Themyscirians, Amazons, whatever the fuck they're called. Yeah.
But yeah, Thanos was a ripoff of Darkseid. Darkseid came first. So
that is true.
Yep.
But Thanos is much better, so who cares?
Nah. Okay.
What?
I like DC better. So.
Oh my. Well, I mean, listen, they're both good in their own ways. All right.
Look, and I've seen I saw all the MCU movies up until I stopped with Endgame because I'm whatever, they saved the world.
Everything after this is a downgrade. I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
So I refuse to keep up with it. Now there's TV shows, but I actually at one point watched all the movies in their, not the order they came out, but in the chronological order of the timeline. So I was committed to the MCU, but that's time I'll never get back now because some of those movies aren't great, but most of them are pretty good. And I'm an easily entertained pleb. So, okay. A long story short for $5. Off topic. Sitch, isn't it ironic that no YouTubers bring on that Ask Project Corey Schuster for Gaza war, considering he has hundreds of hours of interviews? I'm unfamiliar with this person.
So this guy has a really awesome channel. that you guys should all look up. And basically, for years, he's been interviewing Israelis and Palestinians on like all sorts of questions, including like, are all Jews awful? Are all Palestinians awful? Are your favorite two-state solution, one-state solution, blah, 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 blah. And like the answers are all over the place. And he's a lot of great footage if you're interested in like these questions and like what random people on the street in Israel and Palestine think about them. I don't think it is strange because the videos, since they're kind of the answers are all over the place, they don't really help one side's narrative about the conflict. So that'd be my guess as to why no one's talked to him. I mean, maybe we should reach out and talk to him because we don't really care, but about having a narrative.
So. Sure, that would be interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check him out. Thanks for the recommendation. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we already asked that question from Christian Baller. He sent in a super chat. Okay. Where are these? No, we already asked that. What does Sitch think of Switzerland's style Switch? The Nintendo Switch. What does Sitch think about the Switzerland style healthcare system?
What is a Switzerland style healthcare system?
So it's actually, as I understand it, and I don't live in Switzerland, it's not too far off from Obamacare. Like private insurance, but it's subsidized. And except the individual mandate there is pretty hard. Like you can actually get in real trouble if you don't purchase health insurance. So contrary to what you may have heard, not every industrialized nation has single payer healthcare.
Right.
But yeah, that's my understanding is basically premium support and private insurance. So,
I mean, if it actually helped reduce the cost of private insurance, that'd be good. I don't think, I think Obamacare is largely a failure. I don't think it helped. At least from my perception, it doesn't seem like it helped that much. But if Switzerland managed to do the same thing but make it work, actually reduce the cost, I mean, I'm all favor of it. Like a lot of people are so ideologically motivated by this. I don't really care. I just want, whatever will get people the best healthcare for the cheapest price. If that means a public option, then I'm for it. If it means the Switzerland thing, I'm for it. I don't think a purely private, market with no government involvement would work, in my opinion. I don't see how that would work.
So my thought on healthcare generally is all these different countries, including the United States, monkey around with the insurance. And to me, the cardinal sin is using insurance to pay for things that shouldn't be insured. Like it's sort of like the analogy uses like it'd be like using your car insurance to purchase gas.
Right.
Like you wouldn't do that. Where their insurance is a financial instrument meant to protect you against financial loss in case of contingency.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Whereas like healthcare is doctor visits and MRIs and stuff like that. And so I think if we move to a system where most care is paid out of pocket, we would actually see a reduction in costs.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that the reason that all these systems evolved, the insurance is just there's a reason for that, right? That makes sense.
And somebody actually sent me an essay about how that happens specifically in the United States, because it used to be health insurance wasn't always a thing. If you granted, when you were going to see a doctor, he was just some dude who like was a glorified barber.
But that's like way back in the day.
Sure. Okay. But it's like you would, if you wanted a doctor's appointment, you'd show up there with like $10 or whatever however much that cost, and be like, okay, yeah, here you go. And it would just be like visiting any other store.
I mean, I don't know, because like my grandfather, he was a pulmonologist. I mean, he made, good money.
Sure.
As a pulmonologist back, he was old enough. He served in a MASH unit in Korea, right? So we're talking about back in the day. So, I mean, I don't know if it was that if doctors were so much cheaper, or if it's just if people made more money.
It's like no. It's not.
I don't know what was going on back then, but
because a pulmonologist or whatever he was.
I mean, he was a specialist,
right? That's skilled labor. That's going to be expensive service regardless. The reason why insurance drives up costs so much is because you pay the insurance company, and then they pay the doctor, and so you're not thinking about price when you go into that. You're just thinking about your insurance premiums. So it's a third-party payer system. So you're, the usual consumer decisions that you usually cut down on, incentivize people to cut down on costs, are not there. So
Yeah, but do most people like? I feel like almost everyone nowadays, when they go to the doctor, they're still paying some amount out of pocket anyway.
Yeah, they're paying copays, but that's not
Right.
the same really, because like a copay, there's basically two different copay prices: a specialist and a generalist.
Right. Or in network, out of network is all this bullshit. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
And so it's like, you know, the doctor's going to charge, or the hospital is going to charge the insurance company, whatever they can get away with. And the insurance company is just going to pass that on to the consumer. That's why an aspirin costs like $20 at the hospital.
Sure. Sure.
So, by the way, one of my friends is a doctor and he's getting hounded by insurance companies because apparently he's approving too much care. Which,
Well, I mean, listen, I would be, I've heard lots of horror stories about insurance companies and lots of horror stories about doctors complaining about how awful hospitals are.
mhm.
So I mean, yeah, like if we could do away with insurance,
I'm
I
not
would
saying
be in
that.
favor,
Yeah.
or like drastically limit it so like it actually does what it's supposed to do. Like if you need critical hospital care, which would make sense as opposed to just normal doctor's visits. I don't know how to do that. I guess I don't have enough faith to believe that like if people just had to pay for doctor's visits, it would just fix the price. Or even if it would, I don't know how we would actually implement the system like that.
So, like, you would still have health insurance. Like, when I cut off half my finger, or like a significant portion of flesh on my finger at like midnight, and my dad had to take me to the emergency room, we weren't driving around looking for a deal. I had to
Sure.
get care then. Um, but it's like, I don't know. I don't think most medical transactions are fundamentally different than other transactions. Like, I don't see a reason why you couldn't just show up at a doctor's office and pay out of pocket.
Well,
But
like, because Adam kind of makes this point because he talks about how, one of the things Trump did was he tried to make hospital costs transparent, which I think
mhm.
is good. But I don't know how much it matters because, like, okay, so even if it's not like an emergency situation, if I just need to go to like a GP,
Yeah.
for a cough or whatever, like, I think a big problem with going to like doctors is that the patient usually doesn't have the knowledge set to really make any kind of informed decision. So when you go to the doctor and they tell you whatever, I mean, I don't know if like they're right or wrong. I have no fucking clue what's going on here. It's not really like the same thing as like, going on Amazon and like looking for the best laptop fan or something.
Okay. Are you a guy who's like into cars or anything like that?
Not cars, no.
No, I'm not. So when I bring my car to the mechanic, there's a good chance I'm getting ripped off.
That's a no, exactly, yeah, right.
But, obviously there are better mechanics and worse mechanics. Some mechanics have good reputations, some have terrible ones. But it's like we don't see the price of cars, car servicing going drastically up. It's more expensive to get my oil changed now than it ever has been, but it's not like look at the rate that's increasing versus the rate healthcare costs are increasing. Also, if you look at like LASIK surgery, that's a medical procedure that's gotten cheaper over time because insurance doesn't pay for that. People pay for it out of
Yeah,
pocket.
no, listen, I think the point I think a point that you're saying is true, is that like, yes, if insurance isn't going to cover something, it will lower the price. I do agree with that. I think it's the same thing with college. I
Hmm.
think part of the reason college has gone so far up is because of government guaranteed loans
Yeah.
for students,
Hmm.
100%. So I do think those are factors. What I'm just saying is like I do think that healthcare is a different service than normal services that a person partakes in, because you don't necessarily, first of all, oftentimes you don't really have a choice. Oftentimes you're not going to really understand what you're getting into and whether you're making good decisions or not. So
I take your point. I don't know. I think that's true of a lot of things about the economy. I think, and granted, this is we
well,
talked
they
about.
don't have the same effect as your health does, though.
What's that?
They don't have the same effect as your health, though,
So,
generally.
like when you buy food, does that affect your health?
Well, you're not usually going to buy food that's going to kill you. I mean, it
No, but
happens, but
people buy food
regularly.
that kills them slowly.
Well, that's but they know it. I mean, people listen.
Do
People will go out
I
and they
mean,
buy
sure.
junk food. They know that's just bad for you. So like,
I would hope so, but
when
I don't know.
when you go to a doctor and you're like, listen, I have acid reflux because I've been eating nothing but fried food and pizza all day, and they say, listen, you don't have to change your diet. Instead, we're going to give you this thing called a protein pump inhibitor that's going to stop you from having acid reflux. but they don't tell you that it's going to create all like a host of horrible negative side effects that are going to destroy your health for the next 10 years. Like, I mean, that happens every day in this country.
First of all, I really want to know how you got into my doctor's office and heard that conversation. Second of all, I talked about earlier about like drawing things up on the chalkboard and everything making sense, but like in practice it not working. It's entirely possible that's true with the sort of healthcare system I'm talking about. I just think that and there are differences in healthcare. Like if you have cancer, you're going to need chemotherapy or you're going to die, right?
Right.
If you have diabetes, you're going to need insulin or you're going to die, whatever. I understand that every industry is different. I think most of healthcare, you'd be surprised that it could operate like it usually does, like every other industry does, that you don't need insurance. Or that not that you don't need insurance, but that like insurance shouldn't pay for most things.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like in theory, that we shouldn't have to have insurance for like normal healthcare, but I don't know how to fix that.
So for like a medical decision that you're walking into, you don't like acid reflux. What's the insurance company going to do? Are they going to do what's best for you, or are they going to do what's going to cost them the least amount of money?
Yeah, obviously the latter.
So why do you think a consumer wouldn't be?
Well, actually, I don't even know about that because so the thing that costs them the least amount of money would be for the doctor to say, I'm not going to give you any medicine. I'm going to tell you to just eat better food, right?
And look, I'm sure that does happen. Like, you don't need this treatment.
They don't. They usually say, here's a pill, right? They write you a prescription for some shit.
Right. But I don't know. I think consumers are more likely to make better decisions for themselves than insurance companies are. But
I would hope so.
Yeah. I don't know. And that's something I'm going to talk about more in the coming months. I want to do a lot on healthcare, but it's not a sexy topic, but I like it. The Red Holzinator, $1.99. Salem is fun. We go there every year. I believe that. I love Halloween, and I like New England seems like a nice place during that time of year. But have you ever been to Salem?
No, I don't think so.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it's getting close to my bedtime.
Nice.
I think we're gonna wrap this up soon if that works for you.
No, I want to go for another 3 hours. Don't be a pussy. I'm used to streaming for like a million hours.
You are a marathon streamer, but
that's true.
I don't know. I have a day job that I must attend to.
Okay,
yeah.
Fair enough.
Unless we get like $1 million super chat, then I can retire. So
there you go.
But either way, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I will come on to your channel at some point in time.
Didn't you already? Or am I hallucinating?
I will come again.
Okay.
Yeah, because you guys have interesting discussions, and I always have fun when I'm there.
Thank you.
Anyways, we got one more super chat. Just don't send any more in because I'm about to log off. The Justice 35 for $5. Thank you so much. I'm still mad about the Bills and Packers. Love your content. Hope this Sitch guy starts releasing bids. Well, don't hold your breath on that one. But I too am bitter about the Bills and the Packers, and the Packers got a new kicker, so they need one. You probably don't even know what we're talking about.
I understand the concept of football. I don't watch any organized sports. I find it very boring.
You know, God, when I was on your show,
mm-hmm.
I was wearing my Buffalo Bills hat, and then they compared Adam to the New York Jets and you to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and I said they had the hot cheerleaders, so I'm in favor of it. Yeah.
They did. They also beat the Bills twice in the Super Bowl. Like,
oh, S-class, baby.
So I was like, oh, wait, I guess that could have been an insult in my direction. Cowboys suck now, though, so whatever.
The only thing I know is that, like, back in our PS2 era, when I used to play my older brother in Madden, whatever, I was always the New England Patriots for some reason.
Well, they're probably the best team in the game, depending on the year.
That's all I know. So I was like,
what team did he play as?
I don't remember.
Oh, come on, man.
But in like a million years.
That's back when, for those of you who play Madden games out there, that's back when Madden was good.
I played the New England Patriots, and then for the NFL, not the NFL, the NHL game, I played the Red Wings for some reason.
Okay. I don't know anything about hockey. I know Red Wings are out of Detroit, but
yeah.
All right. Well, you want to stay on for like 2 minutes after I end the stream? We'll just,
the second you end the stream, I'm out of here. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Later.